Hi, I'm Emily Hazard.
And I'm Becca Anderson.
And this is Grey's Anatomy Uncut, a podcast where we discuss and analyze episodes of Grey's Anatomy. Today we have a special podcast. It is the Season 2 overview, where we talk about all things Season 2, from Episode 1 to Episode 27.
We made it.
Yeah, I know.
It only took a frickin' year.
I know. It did take a year. Actually, it took over a year. But who's counting?
We should have counted the days. Oh,
I kind of did. I looked at when we recorded
201.
It was like near Halloween 2 years ago. Like, not, you know what I'm talking about. Like 2017.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a bunch of top 10, top 5 lists, and we're going to be doing in-depth character analyses of all the main characters, and a little bit different from Season 1, we actually have some listener questions that we're going to answer, so that's pretty freaking cool.
And we haven't really looked at the questions before this, so this will be like live answering.
Yeah. Especially Becca, because I've kept a few of them secret.
Oh. Rude.
Yeah. So if you want to know what Becca's really like, get ready, folks.
How much I really know.
So I have a little bit of follow-up. I didn't really know when to mention this, so I'm just going to mention it now. There were a couple of, quote, special episodes that premiered back when this season was, like, coming out live, and when they had, like, a week break between episodes, they would release these special episodes to get fans caught up on what had already happened. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense. Think, like, pre-Hulu, pre-Netflix. Like, if you didn't,
like
if you missed an episode...
kind of episode or something?
Yeah, if you missed an episode, you would need somebody to tell you what happened. So these were what they used. The first one was called Straight to the Heart. It dropped January 8th, 2006, in between the Christmas episode, 212, and Begin the Begin, which was the first episode with Denny in it, 213. And it was narrated by Stephen A. Bailey, a.k.a. Joe the Bartender. The second one was called Under Pressure, which dropped April 23rd, 2006, in between 222, so that was the episode where Thatcher came to the hospital with his new family, and 223, which I believe was the one with Gwen Graber, and that was also narrated by Stephen A. Bailey. And the last one was called Complications of the Heart, and it dropped September 21st, 2006, between the Season 2 finale and the Season 3 premiere, narrated by, you guessed it, Stephen A. Bailey, Joe the Bartender. So yeah, that's my follow-up, so let's keep moving. Here are some fun statistics. So if you have been listening to the podcast, you probably have heard us...
Why are you listening to this episode if you haven't been listening to the podcast?
Well, it kind of makes sense. Like, say you didn't want to listen to every single episode. You would go to the overview episodes.
Well, you're wrong.
So if you're a new viewer, we love you.
And go listen to all the other episodes.
Yeah, go rate us. We got a new rating on iTunes. That was pretty cool.
So it wasn't me. Yay.
Shout out. Shout out to you folks out there.
I should start taking everyone's phones that I have and, like, just rating us on iTunes.
Exactly. Just to boost our scores.
Like...
Anyways, so if you've been listening to the podcast, you should know that we've been doing Seriously Count at the end of every single episode, and we added them all up for the entire season, and it came out at 50.
Mm-hmm. And the big episode was 205 that had 9, and then
I think that's 212, which was the Christmas one. That one had 8. Yeah. But the big one
was 05. Well, that was the one that they came home from all the dates. Seriously? Mm-hmm. Seriously? Which was amazing.
And then we also decided to do this episode themes, just like a very quick, what is the main theme of each episode. So Becca and I are going to switch off. So 201 was You Can Be a Surgeon and a Human Being.
Episode 2 was Knowing When to Say When.
Episode 3 was Losing Control / Free Falling.
Episode 4 is Denial.
Episode 5, Pain.
Episode 6, Is It Better to Know or Not Know? Is Ignorance Bliss or Pain?
207 was Communication.
Episode 8 is Fate.
209 was Gratitude, giving thanks for the things you do have.
210 was How Much is Too Much.
211 was Loneliness.
212 is Family.
213 was New Beginnings / Starting Fresh.
214 is Lying Often to Yourself.
215 was Crossing Lines.
And then we had 216 and 217, the bomb episodes, which were kind of like the Sixth Sense, or like if you knew this was your last day on Earth kind of thing.
218 was growing up and how no one really does.
219 is karma.
220 is some wounds go deeper than you think. Sometimes there's no quick fix.
221 was superstition.
222 was play the game of life. Don't let fear keep you from playing.
223 is making sacrifices.
224 was damage, how we're all damaged and we all cause damage.
225 was consequences of the 7 deadly sins, aka human nature.
And kind of a continuation of that, 226 was fight or flight, the human instinct.
Yeah, and 227 was just no speeches, no nothing.
No open, yeah.
Just kind of running to the end, anyway. All right, so let's get into this.
Yeah.
So first we're going to start off with a little character analysis about Meredith.
Woohoo! Meredith is our first one. We decided to just take a big bite. And, okay, so how
she demands to be first, let's be real.
Exactly. She would have sat us down and asked us why she's not first. So how did you organize your character analyses?
So a main thing that I feel like I kind of focused on with at least like the 5 kind of interns was where they started out the season and kind of where they ended it, like the growth that they went through, that kind of stuff. And I mostly did bullet points because I was like, I feel like one of us is going to mention something and it's just going to like...
Yeah, that's what I did too.
Spark something. So I feel like the main thing to really talk about with Meredith was how she starts this season really, you know, like no one's knowing about her mom. She just broke things off with like Derek, found out he was married, and really had kind of no control over that relationship. And we kind of get the 180 completely at the end because we end with her being in the situation where it's up to her if she wants to go with Finn, if she wants to go with Derek. And really the big question at the end of the season was, what is Meredith going to do? Mm-hmm. Whereas she started the season as in, what is Derek going to do?
Yeah.
And so I think that was like a really big thing for her this season, was kind of gaining control over her life.
Yeah, I know. And she went through a ton of shit. But yeah. I split my character analyses into 3 different like categories: relationships, the author's purpose, and like into season 3. Mm-hmm. So relationships, I chose Derek, the other interns, and Ellis as her 3 big relationships this season. And so for Derek, I wrote, this season was really about proving the magnitude of this like undying, all-consuming love between Meredith and Derek. Mm-hmm. Like season 1 is kind of like a fun little Meredith and Derek.
They're just starting.
Yeah, and it's like, if you did not have season 2, that couple would not seem as intensely in love. And that's why I'm always glad that Derek chose Addison. Always. Because...
First.
Yeah.
Well, I think he needed to, because to anyone watching, you know, how could this happily married man who's been married, I don't remember how long they said that they've been
11 years.
Yeah, for like a good amount of time, choose this person that he, like basically a fling, you know, it wasn't really even a relationship. They had kind of just started dating. They were like, and so I feel like we really had to have this season 2 to be like, show that they can't stay away from each other, and that there is something really deep there, and to kind of get those feelings and get the things of like at the end of the bomb episode when all he really is worrying about is Meredith and not Addison, and get those kind of moments to really realize the magnitude of this relationship. And I feel like it makes more sense now when he's like, because we can kind of see that he's like, I'm kind of choosing Meredith now. And so it's not just like, what the hell, he gave up this whole relationship. It makes more sense.
Well, season 2 is my favorite season because Meredith and Derek are apart. Because the whole absence makes the heart grow fonder is the whole basic concept. And you have to actually step back and like realize how big of a job the writers had. They had to know, we have to convince this audience without a shadow of a doubt that these two are fated to be together, aka the Romeo-Juliet of it all. You know, like, we have to convince them that not only do they love each other, but it's like the universe needs them to be together, you know? And they worked so hard, and it's just beautiful how they did it.
Well, I think you also have to go to a point because, to a certain extent, at, season 1 finale, I feel like, obviously with Meredith involved, we are all a little bit mad at Derek for lying to her and for doing all of this stuff. And so I feel like we really need kind of the season 2 thing to be like, no, they're meant to be together, to Meredith to kind of get to this place where she does kind of get over him for a second, but then the biggest thing is that she kind of learns to forgive him for all of that stuff. And I think in a way, like, forgiveness and kind of like all that stuff is another really big thing that Meredith went through this season.
I don't know if she has completely yet, though.
I don't know
we'll
if she had
stick
either.
Around.
Yeah. But it was definitely a thing because, like, she had to kind of do this whole thing with Derek. She had to go through a crap ton with her mother and kind of dealing with blaming the chief, blaming her mother, kind of all of that stuff. But then also kind of forgiving herself with the whole George situation as well. And kind of dealing with all of that.
Yeah. So let's move on to the other interns. Season 2 might come in second place for intern family moments just by a hair.
2.
3.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be tied with season 3 for me. Meredith's interactions with the interns and how she's kind of seen as the leader or the pack is critical to how we see her as a character, I think. It positions the audience to see Meredith as a worthy main character. I mean, the fact that, like, this is the first time she's ever had a family, like a real family, that's huge for her,
But it also, I think, includes the fact that it's the first time for a lot of them that they've really had this kind of, like, from what we know about them right now, the only one that kind of had, like, a good relationship with their entire family growing up was George. And so I think that's a huge thing for not only Meredith, but for all of them, was that this is finally kind of the family that they've been looking for.
But I mean, it's huge for all of them, but Meredith especially, and we're talking about her right now. I mean, it drives a lot of her decisions and kind of defines who she is and who she wants to be now. So that's huge. That's a big takeaway from this season, is how much she'd give up to protect these people that she kind of just met. Yeah. And so, talking about Ellis, I think that the writers expertly sprinkled tidbits of this, like, Ellis, Thatcher, Chief, Meredith backstory at exactly the right time, and they sprinkled the exact right secrets to come out at the right time so that it parallels well with what's happening with Meredith, and that it feels natural and it keeps the audience asking for more.
I think it's also important to note that we kind of get, like, it's very, like you said, all spread out through the season. And I like how it all doesn't come from necessarily, like, one person. You get a little bit with Ellis and her kind of delusional Alzheimer's things. You get a little bit from looking at her interactions with the chief. Then you get some from, like, when we meet Thatcher. You get a lot from when we meet Ollie, the AA coach for the chief. And and then we get a little bit more, too, with Adele at the end. And so I kind of like how it's not just, like, at one point the chief is, like, sitting down telling the story. We get it from all different viewpoints, all scattered throughout the season.
I mean, I feel like this season, in terms of Meredith, is a lot about her underlying anger and betrayal for both of her parents, because I think to some degree she might blame them for being so messed up, even though that's not, like, a logical, like, reason, like, person to blame for what happened between Derek and Addison. I feel like she kind of does.
I think she is mad at her parents more for, like, what they let happen and how it affected how they treated her. Because she never got to know her dad because he just left and kind of, in her, like, eyes, just forgot about her. And we know a little bit about this, but we know that Ellis was never really the best mother to Meredith. And then I think almost, like, the ultimate betrayal, which we really get in the season finale, was I think she had kind of started seeing the chief almost as this father figure. And then we get this whole scene of her at the end being like, no, you're the reason that my family is so messed up. And I feel like, in a way, that's almost a little bit of betrayal on his part for her, too.
I just think it confuses her because she respects the heck out of the chief, but at the same time hates him.
Yeah.
And I feel like she has this constant fear in the back of her head of becoming her parents that she can never really shake, and I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. We have seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her mommy and daddy problems.
Oh, yeah. Season 3, a huge, huge theme of Season 3 is...
that fear.
And especially between her and Ellis. Mm-hmm. We get so much more into the Meredith-Ellis relationship in Season 3. So,
just to talk about the audience's purpose, I think with Meredith, Shonda, Ellen, and the writing team actually were able to create a character that was new to television, which is kind of astounding when you think about it. She's so unique that it's hard to even compare her to other characters I've seen on television before.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's not the typical...
It's like she draws
peppy
you in.
Person.
Yeah. But I think Ellen's performance is probably more than half of the reason why, because even with those monologues in 227, I'm watching all these other brilliant actors. But, like, then you cut over to Ellen, and it's like she literally draws you into your screen. Mm-hmm. Something about the way she's special. She's got that extra something, you know? And I had one question. Do you think Meredith has a true foil in this show? Because remember in 201, Addison said that Meredith was the anti-Addison. But I don't know.
I think Meredith's foil, and this is going to be kind of weird, to a certain extent, is herself. And almost her not wanting to become Ellis and kind of that whole situation. Because I think a lot of times Meredith gets in the way of herself. Of being like... ooh, I don't want to act this way because that might be like my mom, but then like I also don't know how to be like necessarily like the most emotional I don't know. Like I feel like she gets in the way of herself.
And that's what we've always talked about, how there seems to be two different sides of Meredith. The super like narcissistic kind of selfish person, but then at the same time she can also be this person that is the most selfless person, most loyal person, you know, would crucify herself for our sins, but she could also be super selfish. And that's just so interesting how they can write it and actually make that seem like it fits, you know? So just into season 3, Shonda always prides herself about how the show is cylindrical in nature. Everything's always constantly coming back around and tying back. And so you mentioned this, but Meredith having the decision now instead of, you know, Derek having the decision, in having to decide between the quote good person who you should choose or the quote right person that is likely to cause more drama. I mean, that's brilliant. And there's a shift between who is she going to choose and it's now who should she choose. Should Meredith take Derek back? You know, it's like, did Meredith really let go of her anger at her mother, father, and the chief? Will that come back?
Yeah.
You know, it's not so much like, oh, who will she choose? It's, should she choose Derek?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's all I have for Meredith. All right, so we have this question that was sent to our email. The last shot of season 2 finally shifts the power and control back to Meredith, okay, like we've been saying. Do you think this is intentional?
100%.
Do you think this was to start a narrative about agency and control in relationships? Damn, okay, college degree writing into us here.
Damn.
Wow.
I'm sorry, my degree's in math, not English.
I feel showed up now. Do you think this was to start a narrative about agency and control in relationships?
Well, what is agency in relationships?
Agency is like you feel like you have the power to voice an opinion, I believe. Like you feel like you have some power in a relationship. It's not like someone else is deciding for you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 100%.
But I feel like it's more about not necessarily like who should have the power and control in relationships. I feel like it's more about the fact that, like, for so much of this season, Meredith has felt so powerless and out of control, and then this is kind of the first situation in a long time where she's like, I have control, and we really see kind of going into season 3 that it's like, I have the control, but what do I do with it? And so I don't know necessarily if it's, like, making a statement about, like, relationships in general.
I found it a little bit feminist. A little bit. I mean, not like
I can see that. And we'll definitely get some more feminist vibes as we go in, like, further down in the seasons. But, I mean, like, a tiny bit. But I saw it more as they were doing it for the character purpose and not for just being, like,
political.
We're making a statement about like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is just kind of start a narrative, though, about that sort of thing. Control in relationships, yeah.
And I feel like control... I don't know if I like the word control because that sounds, like, very, like, dominating and, like, whatever. But, like, the power in relationships becomes kind of a theme in Meredith and Derek's relationship because I feel like they're constantly, like,
well, I mean, that power dynamic
shifting
of an attending versus an intern.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, just that in itself is a weird power struggle in this relationship. So, yeah, I feel like this is to kind of show you... It's supposed to be... I'll say it like this. It's supposed to feel like a dramatic shift.
Yes.
As soon as Meredith realizes, whoa, this guy still wants me, which is something that's interesting because... Like we've said, she knows so much less than the audience that I think up until they were in that exam room together, I don't think she knew that he still wanted her.
Well, the only two people that don't know that Derek is in love with Meredith are Derek and Meredith.
Yeah, well, they know now.
Thank you, Addison.
Shout out to Addison. All right, so that was a great question.
Yeah.
So we have our first top 5 list.
Top 5 episode titles.
Sweet.
Whoop, whoop.
And actually, we changed it up this time. Becca and I did these lists secretly.
Yeah.
So
we don't know.
We actually don't know, which is... It's going to be super fun for us.
I feel like in some ways, some of the lists we're going to have are going to be very similar, and then others are going to be, like, very different.
But that's the goal.
Yeah.
So we decided that we were going to have honorable mentions, but since I had, like, a list of 20 honorable mentions for, like, best songs or whatever, we decided that top whatever was going to be the amount of honorable mentions.
Like top 5 episode titles, you could only have 5 honorable mentions.
Which I do. I have 5.
Oh, spoiler, I have none.
I have 5. Okay, so honorable mentions.
I'm going to be honest. I only have honorable mentions for, like, 2 of these lists.
I have it for everyone.
Oh, my God.
All right, so honorable mentions, top 5 episode titles, 5 honorable mentions.
Right.
Deterioration of the fight or flight response, 226. What have I done to deserve this?
Okay.
219. Grandma got run over by a reindeer, 212. Enough is enough, in parentheses, no more tears, 202. And raindrops keep falling on my head, 201.
All right.
So you want to start with your 5?
Ironically enough, my 5 is raindrops keep falling on my head.
Okay. My 5 is Into You Like a Train, 206.
Oh, I did like that one. 4 was 17 seconds for me.
Okay.
I really like that one. 225.
Yeah. My number 4 was Deny, 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 204.
Okay. My 3, and I cheated a little bit. My 3 is It's the End of the World as We Know It. So it's 2 of them, but I put it together.
That's my 3. That's my 3.
At least we both cheated.
And we both cheated, yeah, exactly.
All right. My 2 is Begin the Begin.
Okay. My 2 is Losing My Religion.
That was my number 1.
My number 1 was 17 Seconds. I love that episode title. I think it's so simple, and I think it does exactly its job, and it's also interesting. Like, as soon as I saw that, it drew me in. I was like, 17 seconds? What could that possibly mean? You know?
It's interesting. For me, what put Losing My Religion as number 1 was what Shonda put in the Gray Matter blog about how each of the interns, like, loses something in that episode, and I was like, I love that.
That was a really hard decision for me.
I like
to choose between.
First, like, when I looked at and I saw this, because I pretty much went, like, down the list of, like, all of our top 10s. When I saw that, I, like, literally, like, I was like, 1, Losing My Religion. Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
So we have one more question that we're going to do before we jump into the next analysis.
Oh,
and
this is unknown.
This comes in from also Gmail and...
Which one of our questions don't come from Gmail?
Twitter.
Oh, people actually tweeted?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I
thought you were just gonna be like, for every question, like, this one comes from Gmail. I was like, did they all?
No, well, I also got some of our friends actually listen to our podcast, and I got some texted into us, so shout out to them. That's a true friend there. And it is, why is Meredith such a self-absorbed bitch?
Damn.
Well said.
Great question, but because I can honestly see how you can see that, like, how you would.
I think what they're asking, like, isn't why, it's as much as why is she written so self-absorbed, I think is kind of what the question... Because if I was to answer why is Meredith a self-absorbed bitch, I would say she has extreme mommy problems. No. I think what this person is getting at is why did they
make her
why
that
did
way?
They want to write their main character to come off as a self-absorbed bitch?
I think a couple things. One, it's interesting, like we said before, there aren't really any other characters on TV that have the kind of narcissistic tendencies that Meredith has.
It's also so relatable. Everyone, okay, think about it. Everyone wants, in their own head, everyone is kind of like Meredith. You know what I'm saying? I think Meredith is just an exaggerated representation of one personality trait.
Well, I think the other thing that you really have to look at with Meredith is, yes, you know, like, she's this horrible person, but look at her mother. Like,
she's not a horrible person.
Well, okay, well, she makes some questionable
decisions. She's self-absorbed.
Yes.
But she's not a terrible
you know what
person.
I mean? Like, you look and you're like, ugh, her personality. But I'm like, look at Ellis. Meredith could have been so much worse with... Like, Ellis is a bitch. I'm sorry. This question should be, why is Ellis a self-absorbed bitch? Which, to that answer, I don't know. But... And so that's kind of what Emily was saying before, is I think you have to look a lot into how Meredith was raised, because she was raised by this person who...
She was raised by wolves, basically.
By frankly, like, Ellis is very self-absorbed, and is like, I'm the best. She didn't give a crap about Meredith, and so really the only person caring about Meredith as a kid was herself. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that can make you a little bit self-absorbed, because it's like, well, I'm the only one who's looking out for me, so I have to kind of be that way.
And in regards to, like, always changing the conversation back to Derek or something, that's what we hear a lot. I mean, I feel like there are two ways to watch a television show. One, to get super annoyed by everything like that. And two, to kind of embrace it and kind of just be like, there goes Meredith, like, neurotic Meredith again.
Like we do.
Yeah, and it's just, like... It's so much fun. Like, I was watching 301 recently in preparation for our next podcast, and Meredith says some stuff, and I'm laughing out loud because I'm like, ugh, classic Meredith. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes with some characters, some I cannot do this with, but with some characters, I can almost decide to let certain aspects of their personality...
Like their annoyances.
Yeah, like, I can almost decide and just be like, I'm going to find this charming. And I do, and I think that's fun.
And I think the other thing is, you look at the 5 main interns, and all 5 of them are kind of annoying in their own way. Like, Christina is very much... Christina's also a little bit self-absorbed and into herself. Also, Alex kind of has the arrogant asshole kind of vibe. Izzy is 100% the, like, I tend to go a little overboard, like, has that personality. George is really the only one that you're like, poor George is, like, with all of these, like, insane people.
George can be a little bit, like, his self-pity can go off. No, but what I was going to say was that I feel like each one of these main 5 characters are written to be exaggerations of one personality trait. Because together they form one person. Magic. Right. So the fact that we say it as a joke, I can sometimes go a little overboard, but I feel like that's every character. Because when you think about it, they're all supposed to be this personality trait, but exaggerated. George is the exaggerated version of, like, what we all feel inside, a little part of us.
The, like, little pity, like, oh, poor George.
Yeah.
Like,
and we all have that, like, a tiny fraction of that inside of us. We all have a little bit of Izzy inside of us. We all have a little bit of Christina, and we all wish we could say some of the stuff that Alex says. And so I feel like...
Christina.
And so I feel like with Meredith, we all are a little bit selfish. It's just that happens to be her personality trait, and so that's going to come across the screen as super...
Well, and I feel like every single one of us, as I just did this to Emily, is, you know, someone else is talking, and you're like, I don't want to talk about you anymore, or I feel like talking right now, and it's just like... Blah, blah. But we don't actually, like, say that, and I just interrupted Emily. So I just did it. But... You know what I mean? Like, when someone's talking about themselves and they're, like, going on, and I feel like everyone in our head is kind of, like...
Thinking about yourself.
Thinking, like, ugh, like, I wish I could just talk about myself. Meredith is just the person who's, like, all right, enough about you, and, like, actually says it.
It's kind of refreshing to also, like, see somebody that can just do that. Like, I find that fun. Anyway, we spent way too long on this. Let's keep going. So now we have Alex Karev, character analysis.
And I just, like, I want to say something about Alex, because I just realized it. Like, I was thinking about this podcast, obviously this morning before I came over to record, And I realized something very interesting about Alex. And I want to see if you noticed it and if you think it's as interesting as I think it is. So, the 5 main interns, we get huge pieces of each of the interns' pasts in this entire season. You know, we get so much about Meredith and Ellis. We get Christina and her mom and kind of those issues she has there. We get Izzy and the pregnancy and all of that. We get George, we meet his family, self-pity. We don't really get any huge revelation about Alex or his past. You know, everything we kind of learn about him is almost, you're like, yeah, I kind of could have guessed that. Like, even his speech to the chief, as amazing as it is, you're like, of course, he's the jock. He's talking about football. You know? Mm-hmm. There's no big revelation. And it kind of came to me in this, like, thing is, I feel like they're still pushing the fact that, you know, obviously we have intern OTP, and he's in this intern OTP, but I feel like there's the core interns of Meredith, Christina, Izzy, George, and Alex is there, but he's still slightly on the outside of them, you know, because, and we get pieces of that, because a lot of, like, later we'll go into the top 10 magic moments, we have that list, and a lot of them were, like, 3 or 4 of the interns, and, like, not necessarily, like, Alex being in some of those moments. And I think that's still because, you know, we look back to the first season, and he wasn't originally supposed to be in their group.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Which I think where it goes to.
Yeah.
But it also, you see it, like, in the last episode when the 4 of them all helped Izzy kind of get over this thing, and he's like, no, I wasn't there, I didn't help. And is like that. And so I thought that was kind of interesting in, like, his little character thing to discuss. Anyway.
I do kind of find that interesting, too. I almost think, like I've said, though, Alex is almost better at an arm's length. Like, you pull him too close into the show, and then his purpose kind of doesn't work as well. So I've noticed it over the years watching it.
And I also kind of like the fact that, you know, they're like, yes, he is a little bit on the outside, but he's still like, and he's, you know, he's kind of putting himself out there. He's like, I'm not involved in this whole Izzy situation. But he still gets himself involved and is like on the phone to Meredith and is like, yeah, okay, I'll stall or whatever, you know? Because he still is that loyal person, and he's still the person that, like, you know, when Meredith needed something or needed to talk to someone who, like, is kind of as negative, Nancy, you know, like, to tell, you know, like, she told him, is it bad to wish that my mom had cancer or whatever? He's that person. He's dirty Uncle Sal.
Well, I'm glad, though. I'm glad that he wasn't just, like, living at the intern house yet. Like, I'm almost glad that he's kind of a mystery, because I feel like that's how Alex functions the best as a character. When you pull him too close, you start seeing things you don't want to see. When you keep him from a distance, you know, you can't see him.
When you pull him too close, he gives the whole hospital syphilis. Damn it, Alex. Anyway, so relationships. The big 3 for me: Izzy, Addison, Meredith. Interesting how they're all women. So Izzy was the obvious choice for him to go with. You know, it was always going to happen. But the jock and the pretty girl.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm glad that Grey's Anatomy flipped that cliche, and they were aware that the jock with the model cliche, you know, is overdone, and I'm glad that they proved that they were aware of it, and they proved that they were above that as a show.
Well, and I think ultimately Izzy and Alex are wrong for each other at their core.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, hot take, maybe a little bit controversial, but I think we both agree on that.
Like, and don't get me wrong, like, I love the two of them as characters, like, and I thought, like, I mean, like, when they're together, like, they have cute moments, like, when he pulled her back and, like, kissed her in the bar.
Oh my gosh.
Adorable. And you're like, oh, God. But at their core, like, Alex is always going to be, to a certain extent, this kind of bad boy thing, and I don't think that's what Izzy wants and or needs.
I'm not even gonna say that, like, Izzy doesn't want him. I just think that some personalities just don't go.
Well, that's,
I
wasn't saying, like, she doesn't want him. It's just that bad boy personality that he has. She ultimately realizes that, like, she deserves more. You know, like, she had that revelation with Denny and blah, blah.
And I don't think Alex should change for Izzy.
I think he should change a little bit in just, like, the sense of, like, from knowing the interns. Like, obviously, like, even in this season, we get a little bit more of his loyalty coming through, and, you know, we get some of those changes, which makes sense. But I don't think he should completely turn on who he is.
Meanwhile, this is kind of a good segue. Meanwhile, there's Addison. Now Addison's being thrown into the mix, and suddenly you realize he's the same Alex. But for some reason, this seems to work better with Addison.
Oh, yeah.
And it's weird, because we've always said that Addison is one half Izzy, you know? Mm-hmm. And like I've said this before, the Addison-Alex thing was mostly, I think, due to a successful chemistry test. And
oh, yeah.
I find it so much more interesting than just Izzy and Alex, the jock and the pretty girl, you know? Because she's an attending and because there's a lot of history there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also feel like, you know, comparing her with Izzy, Addison has a little bit more of a backbone than Izzy.
Well, we said one half
in like certain
Izzy, one half Bailey.
Yes. And I think that's Alex needs, you know, like the certain kind of personality trait of being kind of more arrogant or something. I feel like you kind of need someone to like almost push back on you a little bit to have that work. And Izzy didn't give that to him as much, but Addison does. And I feel like she also has more of that pushback because she is the attending.
That's what I was about to say.
Because she does have the the power over him, technically.
And I think that works really well with Alex. I think Alex needs somebody who is his boss, basically. And weirdly enough, and don't get into this yet, I don't think it works with George. I don't think that George
needs someone powerful.
Yeah, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. And so that's interesting. But yeah, Alex and Addison's hate chemistry, I mean, that is one of the things that I went into season 3 most fascinated by, because I was like, wow, this came out of left field in the best way possible, and I have no idea where it's going.
Well, it was one of those things, you know, like the start, I forget which episode they threw them together. Mm-hmm. They kind of did it in the beginning of the episode. You're like, yeah, sure, whatever, like working with it. And then by the end, you're like, why the hell didn't they do this earlier? This is amazing.
Yeah, there's something here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And so the last one I have is Meredith, because I think Alex and Meredith are super similar. And just a few moments that stuck out in my head. 203, when Meredith is talking to him about Ellis. Mm-hmm. 209, when Alex talks to her about Izzy. And then 212, when she gives up a surgery to help Alex study.
Mm-hmm. They have... I'm trying to think of how to explain this. They have
a brother and sister relationship that... a lot of people say that Izzy and George have that, like, brother-sister relationship, but there's something about Izzy and George that I am not convinced. Meredith and Alex, legit, I feel like could have been brother and sister growing up.
Oh, yes.
It's so flawless.
And that's actually, like, this sounds crazy, but I feel like almost one of my favorite kind of relationship pairings on the show is Meredith-Alex. And this continues. Like, even today, you know, like, you know, I don't really like necessarily where the show is, you know, today and whatever. But some of the moments that I've seen from, like, you know, like later seasons and stuff, some of my favorite moments. Like, I've seen scenes between Meredith and Alex, and I'm like, I'm glad that they still kind of kept that going.
Mm-hmm. And like I said here, it might not be super obvious to most viewers, but Meredith is truly the person that gets Alex to grow as a character in this entire show. It's not Izzy.
Agreed.
It's truly Meredith.
Especially in this season.
Yeah. So then I wrote author's purpose under this little section. I wrote, Alex actually does continue to be the foil to George in this season.
Yes.
So think about it. In the beginning, Alex gets Izzy, and George still can't get noticed by Meredith. Then in 210, Alex cheats on Izzy, and in that same episode, the writers hint that Meredith might see George for the first time, because they have that moment where she kind of looks out the door and George is standing there. And then in 218, Alex is with Izzy again, you know, like pretty happy with Izzy, and Meredith and George explode in 218. And then by the end of the season, George is in a somewhat stable relationship with Callie, who is super into him, and Alex loses Izzy completely to Denny.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, they completely foiled each other again.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I actually did write here that Alex is the representation of the black sheep of the family.
Yes.
He represents the mistakes that we all make in the past we don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a metaphorical, symbolic representation there. So into season 3, I think what we should look for is... I mean, he kind of committed himself to Izzy and helping Izzy there at the end of season 2, but I feel like just trying to separate myself from what I know about the future of the show, I feel like viewers in 2006 could have gone either way, Izzy or Addison. In their head, they were like, these are both viable options. And that's kind of cool.
Agreed. Top 10 shocking moments. Let's shock the viewers.
Oh, yes. It might be shocking that we don't have the same stuff. So I have some honorable mentions.
Of course you do.
First, Meredith births a fucking horse. Denny dies and Izzy quits. Yeah, that actually doesn't make my list. That's my honorable mentions.
I'm surprised. Anyway.
The hot dog eating contest.
Oh my god. That should have been an honorable mention. That's my new honorable mention.
George's brother shoots his dad in the ass.
Okay, that was funny.
That was pretty shocking to me. I was like, oh my god, Grace is doing it. Izzy walks in on Alex cheating on her. That was... I did not think... Yeah. Izzy's Quint dies.
Oh, that was sad.
Jiggy swallows a freaking light bulb.
Can that be the best moment of the season?
211. And Addison gets poison oak.
Those are good.
Those are my top.
Those are good.
Honorable mentions. Yeah. All right, so you want to start with 10 then?
All right, my number 10 was actually Bailey revealing her pregnancy.
Okay.
That was a shock for me when they like did that and they had that whole thing. Like when she's like, "I'm pregnant, you fool," or whatever she said to the chief. I was like, "Wait, what?" Anyway.
See, okay, yeah. That I didn't even think of that. My number 10 is Meredith cries during sex with George.
That's my number 9.
Wow, okay.
I put Meredith sleeping with George, but yeah, I feel like the biggest part was the crying during it. Yeah.
My number 9 is Thatcher Gray has a secret family.
That's a good one. Okay. My number 8 was the reveal of the chief's affair with Eldis and his alcoholic past. Like that whole kind of thing with Ollie.
Mm-hmm. My number 8 was George has to do open heart surgery in an elevator.
Oh, that was good. My number 7 was Christina collapsing in the OR.
My number 7 is Christina loses her baby.
My number 6 was Heart in the elevator and Alex freezing up specifically. Because that shocked me.
My 6 was Derek operates on Bailey's husband. Because I thought that was a pretty good shock when she's just like, what's Bailey's husband's name?
I didn't even think about that. That's a good one. My number 5 was the revelation of Burke being shot.
Okay. My number 5 was Meredith and Derek have sex in the finale. I thought that was pretty shocking. I honestly didn't think that they were going to go that way.
My number 3 was...
Are you on 3 or 4?
Oh, sorry. My number 4 was Izzy quitting the hospital. Because I shot, like, when she turns and so I quit. I was like, what? Like, I was shocked when she said that.
Like, what is that? What are the implications of that? Like, is Katherine Heigl leaving the show?
Well, I was like, she can't leave. What? Yeah.
So my number 4 was Ellis Gray and the chief were having an affair.
My number 3 was Izzy cutting the LVAD. When she, like, the ending of that, when she, like, cut it and then it just ended, I was just like...
That's your 3. Okay. Let's see. My number 3 is Izzy has a daughter.
That was my number 2 was Izzy had a kid.
So that's above to you.
Because honestly, like, I don't know, she had been kind of going towards that path, and so I was like, she's gonna do something crazy. And so I kind of, like, had, like, a half-step inkling of that one. But, like, when she was just like, this is my daughter, I was like...
My number 2 is the bomb actually explodes.
My number 1 is the bomb exploding and Dylan dying. What's your number 1?
My number 1 is Burke gets shot at the same moment that Izzy cuts Denny's LVAD wire. I think you cannot top that.
That was a good shock.
Just as...
I split those up, which I think was why they weren't Okay, sorry. I like interrupting you, okay? I'm having my inner Meredith come out.
I just think that you can't top that as, like, a character, as just, like, a TV writing moment. I think that that's probably... It's almost like the level of shock that you probably can never reach again on this show. And I would debate never does reach again. Like, that shock...
Agreed.
...was just incredible.
The shock of, like, I feel like even, like, the top 4 moments that both of us had, like, if you put them all together... The show never reaches that shock again.
Season 2, man. The height of Grey's Anatomy's power.
Arguably, the closest they get is halfway through season 3. With some of that stuff shocked me.
In a different way, though.
Yes. But, like, the like, jaw dropping to the ground, like, oh my god, did that just happen? No.
Just, like, gold, TV gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a little question here. At what point in the show do you begin not to like it anymore, and why? So we talk so much about how the later seasons are shit, and I feel like that's probably what inspired this question.
Yeah. I feel like the point for me where I was kind of like on the outs with this was the season 5 finale. No, the season 6 finale.
Really? Okay, so season 6 finale is way past what I... If you had...
Because I feel like it starts definitely going downhill before then, but that was like the moment when like the season 6 finale is happening.
And you were like, I hate this.
And I was kind of like, this is dumb. Why is this happening? You know, like everything else I was kind of like, yeah, okay, maybe. But then like that was happening and like it's supposed to be this huge intense moment and I was just like, this is one of the dumbest things I've seen on TV.
Yes, agreed. I like how you just said that.
And that was like the moment I feel like where I was like, I'm kind of done with this.
It's like the show started taking itself way too seriously.
And there's definitely like before then there was definitely like downhill like whatever, and I kind of was just like
forgiving it, but then you were like, nope.
Or like even like things would happen and I'd be like, I don't agree with that, but like maybe they're going somewhere with like, you know, like something, or then they would do something that I'd be like, oh, I hate this, but then they'd have like a good moment after it, and so I'd be like, okay, maybe. But then like that happened, and to me the season 6 finale, I feel like what they were trying to go for with the intensity and the shock was they were trying to go for the same intensity and shock as the bomb episode. In a way, like, that kind of was like a mirror to me, and I was like, no.
But there's nothing...
This is awful.
But the season 6 finale is so much just on the surface. Like, there's no... like,
and that was what got me, is I was like, no.
There's no, like, metaphors. There's no, like, symbolism. Like, the bomb really isn't about the bomb. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the season 6 finale... what you saw was exactly what you got. There was no way that you could really look at it and see anything deeper. But what I will say is that if you had asked me this same question 5 years ago, I would have said the season 5 finale is my cutoff. How I saw the show was the first 5 seasons was a show, the next however many seasons was a different show. Mm-hmm. But now thinking about it, if I had to go back to the root of the problem, I would have to go back to the season 5 premiere and rewrite season 5. Because if you would have to go back to the season 4 premiere and rewrite from there. I mean, season 4 finale and rewrite from there. Because I think from 101, from the pilot to the end of season 4, I see as almost nothing I would change about the show. But in season 5, it starts slowly and it all cultivates in the finale.
Yes.
But you can't change the finale without changing a ton of stuff from earlier in the season. So yes, the season 4 finale is when I think the show is still pretty much flawless. Like, there'll be some make one changes, but very, very few. And season 5 is when you start to see that downhill. Mm-hmm. That, like, where you're like, oh, they're not setting it up well. I'm like, uh-oh. They're, like, things that they're making mistakes on here, and like I would do this instead of that. There was a lot of that, and it all kind of culminates into the finale, and I was like, ooh, was kind of how I saw that finale. So that's just me. But yeah. So now we have another top 5 list. Top 5 funny moments. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I do, actually. A lot of my honorable mentions were like little like phrases, like I like when Alex like, nice panties, Yang, in your dreams you will spawn, like that, or like, see Judy fly.
Is that one of them? Were those?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is like more of like some of the like the one-liners where you're like, oh, that was brilliant.
That's it. Oh, I thought you were gonna read them. Okay.
Those were the 2 I wrote.
Oh, okay. My honorable mentions. Christina standing awkwardly while Addison just sighs in her face from 209. That was an extended scene. The hand washing from 224.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Addison gets poison oak from 219.
Brilliant.
The quote, Adele's sister's in town. I hate that woman from 209.
That's so many of the funny moments I feel like were just like one-liners like that.
Christina and this is kind of cheating. Christina and Izzy's interaction in 203, 222, and 227. That's a little bit of cheating, but those were the my grandmother died with Alzheimer's. Oh my god, why would you say? And then 222 was the did you meet your sister too? And then 227 was the we stick together, okay? This was nobody's fault. And then she's like, thank you, you're welcome. Another one, enjoy your syphilis, Olivia, from 215, and then the hot dog eating contest from 214.
Whoa. The hot dog eating contest didn't make your top 5? Mm-mm. Damn, I'm interested to see what your top 5 is now. Mm. Anyway, my number 5 was all of the scenes of the interns helping Alex study. Okay. I am a fat... Hiccup.
Yeah. Okay, my number 5 was porn guy with Christina in 205.
Oh, I forgot about that. My number 4 was the, like, Christina's mother and that whole, and, like, the, like, somebody sedate me! Like, all of that. Or then, like, no, a fat one.
Yeah.
Just her mother.
My number 4 is Meredith destroying the cast graphs in 222.
That was a good one. My number 3 is Mauer.
My number 3 is Christina and her mother from 204.
Mm-hmm. My number 2 is Graber and Izzy and George.
Okay. My number 2 is Mauer from 213.
My number 1, the hot dog eating contest.
My number 1 were the interns fighting and yelling in the hallway in 212. I love that, the Christmas episode. Where she's like, she let her touch her boobs. And then, like, Christina stabs her with a tree. He cheated on me with George's skanky Sifner.
Hey!
That is just plain rude. Nothing will ever top that to me. I think that's the funniest moment in this whole season. It's just like a scene that I can't watch without just grinning madly by the end of it.
Izzy Stevens, character analysis.
Holy smokes, if any season was completely dominated and obliterated by Katherine Heigl's unbelievable acting talent, it's season 2 of Grey's Anatomy. Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
For relationships, I said Izzy, George, and Denny.
Izzy?
Alex, George, and Denny.
I was like, Izzy's relationship with herself? I'm confused.
She's not Meredith. I already kind of touched on Alex.
Yeah.
So, just...
Izzy and George, we get this... They become very close in this season. And we get this huge kind of falling out with them after the George and Meredith thing.
At first, she was like, I'm on George's side no matter what. Until... Callie's introduced, and then she starts feeling a little bit,
That was like, what episode was it when she walks in and she's like, I'm not taking your side today. George sucks.
Yeah. I feel like that was
20-something.
23. Yeah. So, look, George, in hindsight is 2020, but I think you're an idiot if you aren't at least somewhat picking up on what the show is doing here. I mean... George and Izzy are basically another Meredith and Christina. They're BFFs, and they understand each other better than anyone else understands them. And that is key. Mm-hmm. That is key, especially going into season 3. It was so important that they built this friendship. And I don't think I can emphasize that enough. And Callie, no surprise that Izzy hates Callie. Callie is a plot device employed by the writers to kind of shake Izzy awake to just how much she values George.
Well, and I feel like Callie was very much supposed to be like a wedge in the relationship of George and Izzy. Because you notice when Callie and George are good, Izzy's not happy with George. And then, like, at the end of the season, when George and Izzy are good and, like, on good terms, Callie's not happy. Like, you have that.
And I want to point out that Meredith and Alex are friends. A guy and a girl. Alex has no problem with who she's dating.
Oh, yeah. And there's nothing, like... There's really no even hints of, like, oh, Meredith and Alex would be good together. Like, there's, like, when they're talking, I'm not like, ooh. Like, even though, like, sometimes, like, I don't know, like, they have, like, little cute moments where, like, you're blushing. Like, like, those little things. But it's very different.
It is very different. Especially because the show itself is literally telling you. They had Miss Graber, Gwen Graber, literally said those two people love each other. I mean... Yeah.
And the fact that she's, like, a divorce lawyer, like, 100%.
That's not a mistake. They're not... My point, I think, is that we're not having those scenes with Meredith and Alex. That's not there between them, And so it is very, very subtle in season 2. But to say that it's not there is denial.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. And I feel like that's all we should really say.
And Denny. Holy wow. I think the really big thing that Izzy gets with Denny, I mean, not only love and all of that stuff, but she really starts realizing what she deserves in life, and that she deserves kind of, you know, not this, like, douchey person who's, you know, cheating on her and doing all, like, she deserves so much.
Yeah, I feel like Denny is the representation of the kind of man that Izzy has never had the privilege of dating, because he's the first guy that sees straight through the hot girl status and just sees her. Which is another super important thing. If we're talking about Izzy and George a little bit, it's important that she's already had that kind of attention in the past from another guy, you know? But I think I can sum up Denny pretty well. Denny was a character created to die, and Izzy was a character created to eventually suffer this consequence. Just like Denny was created to die, Izzy had to happen to her. It had to. It was inevitable.
Why? Why do you say that?
The way that you write TV, if you set up a chink or a flaw in a character, it's inevitable that somewhere along the line of that show, you exploit that flaw for drama.
So basically you're saying, like, she was meant to go over the line with a patient. Like, that's
what they...
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying, like, she was meant to have her heart completely, like, crushed by that. And I was like, I wouldn't argue that, but I get what you're saying. Okay.
Denny was a necessity for her to lose a little bit of that idealism, because in the first and second episode of this entire show, they set up the flaw in your face. Her flaw was her idealism and was her getting too emotionally attached to patients. And when you set something like that up so early on, that's a clue to where the show's going with that character. You know? And if the show doesn't go there, that's terrible writing.
Yeah.
Denny is probably the single most genius plot device this show has ever pulled off. Ever.
I agree.
So, author's purpose. I mean, Izzy really did take the spotlight for almost half of this season.
She really did. And I kind of, like, because almost in the season finale, like, alone, like, the last 3 episodes, it was solely about Izzy, you know?
Well, not solely, but...
You know what I mean, though? Like, so much of it was about Izzy. And I feel like for me, you know, like, the season finale, the whole time I'm going through and being like, oh my god, how is Izzy going to handle it? And really, like, just in the last little bit, when they had that, like, scene between Meredith and Finn and Derek, did it turn things back to, like, Meredith for me.
I wonder if any of that has to do with the show discovering the enormous jackpot they hit with Katherine Heigl and using her to leverage a strong fan base. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Because, I mean, Katherine and Izzy effortlessly carry and propel Grey's Anatomy to its critically acclaimed status.
And I think one thing that the writers really took advantage of was Katherine Heigl's ability to deliver amazing speeches. And that's, for me, I feel like what really propelled the Denny and all that stuff. Like, obviously, like, I love her, but, like, just the soul chemistry that Katherine Heigl and
Jeffrey Dean Morgan
had together was amazing. And I feel like they saw that and was kind of like, we have to use this because, like, this is going to draw the audience in. This is going to, and, you know, like, lack of a better word, this is going to make, like, money. Yeah. Like, this is going to be huge.
Yeah. So into season 3, what I hope is that we do see a very different Izzy.
Which I think we will.
Because I think that that's important, because they spent so much time dismantling this character. They should really milk the destruction for all it's worth. They should. But I hope that it's not an unrecognizable Izzy. You know?
And I feel like at first it might be a slight unrecognizable because she has just gone through this horrible loss. And she's going to be in mourning. And so I feel like first, even couple episodes, I feel like we're not going to get the same Izzy that we're used to. You know, it's going to be very different. But I think as she learns to deal with his loss, that's going to be when she kind of becomes this new Izzy. as she deals with it.
Well, what I hope we get to see is how would that girl of Izzy Stevens deal with a crippling thing like this, not like, who is this new character? I want it to seem like her decisions are very much still Izzy Stevens, but just a damaged Izzy Stevens.
Yeah. Or like, I'm doing this because I was completely, like, my heart was completely shattered and blah, blah, whatever.
But I still want it to be Izzy. Like, deep down, I want to look at her and I want to hear what she says, her dialogue, and I want to be like, that's still 100% Izzy. It's just a damaged Izzy.
Arguably, I think the two things that I'm looking most forward to with season 3 is Meredith's control in the relationship, and then what's going to happen to Izzy.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward to, like, the Izzy, George, Callie dilemma.
Ugh, Callie.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have a question that was, I think this one was a Gmail question. I didn't write them all down. If you had to sum up season 2 of Grey's Anatomy into 3 basic themes, what would they be?
I feel like one would be like heartbreak or something, because the amount of characters that went through some sort of like heartbreak, pain, that kind of thing this season. Like, Meredith went through it, George went through it, Izzy went through it, Christina kind of went through her own little heartbreak pain thing. Like, I think that was a huge even then, going into like the heartbreak and pain with like the past and the Chief and Allison Thatcher. I don't know if there's a better word for that.
I have my 3. Okay. So
I didn't look at this question.
Like I've said, well, I didn't either. I just came up with it just now. Like I've said like a billion times, Shonda has said the biggest theme of all of Grey's Anatomy is loneliness, and that you're not alone. So I'm gonna go 1, loneliness, 2, family.
Okay.
3, see, I want to say 2, family, but also like your past, which also could be tied into family, like Meredith's past with her Thatcher.
We did have a lot of
whatever
past stuff.
And then 3, weirdly enough, but I think human instinct is the 3rd one, because 201 talked about how if you become more of a surgeon, you become less of a human, and then 227,
or like human nature.
Yeah, and then 227 tied it back in. And was,
a little bit, yeah.
Was like fight or flight. Well, that was 226. But, you know, like, they tied it back in, and it's like this full circle moment where...
But I feel like you can't... Sorry.
Oh, my God.
Go. Keep talking.
I just think it's interesting, because that doesn't seem like... When you think of Grey's Anatomy, you're not thinking human instinct, you know? But it is... The way that they kind of twist it to fit their show works so well.
Well, because then you could even argue... some of the themes that we did see, like superstition, that like the 7 deadly sins, like that can all be tied into like
human instinct,
human nature.
Yeah. I think that's better. Human nature.
But I think you also have to agree that like another big thing that they talk about a lot is kind of pain, guilt.
Well, what would you say your 3 are?
I feel like past, and that whole like the past doesn't necessarily have to define who you are now. Goes a long way, because you get a lot with, like, we get so much of each of the different characters' pasts, and both how they define who they are as a human, but then also how you can learn from your past and move on from your past. I'd say, like, family, love, friendship, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'd say, like, almost, like, looping in the loneliness and the pain and kind of heartbreak, and how heartbreak kind of leads you to feel lonely, but then you realize that you have that love and family and all that other stuff and whatever, because, yeah.
Like that brilliant line by Mark Tinker, the anger and love equals pain. Yeah, genius. So we have a question that was texted into us by one of a friend of the podcast, and it's just, Denny Duquette, hot or not? Question mark.
Definitely hot.
Definitely hot.
I love Denny. Even though he's, like, sick and dying. And I feel like he looks a little rugged. And granted, I feel like he's kind of old, and so, like, a lot of people are like...
I don't think he's that old. I just think he smokes.
Well, he looks old, too, because he's supposed to be, like, sick and dying.
Yeah.
But, hot.
Even when I was a little kid watching this show, he never looked old to me. He doesn't seem old to me. He seems like he's probably, like, 36 or something like that.
Okay, but granted, then you have to think, like...
Izzy's like 27.
I don't think she's that old.
I think she is. don't you?
I mean, they went through undergrad. And
oh my god, we can't do this again. Not again.
So that's 22. And then they went through, 4 years of med school?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's like 20. Okay, she's 26. 27. That's exactly what he said. Okay.
Yeah.
I lied. She's 27. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's hot.
Anyway.
I will fight anybody who says anything different.
Anyway. Top 10 magic moments.
This magic moment.
This one was hard for me. Mostly because, like, I'd keep thinking of moments and then I'd be like, wait, that's only, like, 2 of the interns.
Well, I mean, not everyone is all of them. It's just ones that I would classify as magic.
I did 3 or more.
Okay. I don't know if I put that kind of rule on mine, but anyway.
I did because I kept being like, well, I love this moment between, like, Alex and Izzy, or, like, I loved this Izzy and George moment. And then I'd be like, no, that's not magic, that's... Anyway.
Alright, so honorable mentions from 211. You're not gonna have a mental breakdown and kill yourself, are you? No. So there's no chance you'll kill us. And then George is like, that was terrible, but good.
The one-liners.
Yeah. So there's no chance you'll kill us. Christina. 209, Thanksgiving dinner when they finally all show up. Yes. I found that very satisfying.
I did too.
206, sitting in the locker room looking after Meredith. Where they all just kind of check in with her, and then they look at her and they're like, Derek chose Addison. You know, but that felt very family to me. 204, she's got ice in her veins, that bar scene in the beginning. And then 201, when they're all kind of protecting Meredith and, like, Izzy backs into... Or George backs up so that Derek can't get to her, and then Izzy goes, McBastard. That, yeah.
Right. My number 10 was Meredith, Izzy, and George trying to calm Christina down, which is, like, freaking out. You're going to dehydrate.
Do you want some water? Mine was from 207. It was Christina and Izzy taking care of Meredith with the pregnant guy. So, being like, Meredith, are you having a mental breakdown? I am not having a mental breakdown. See, she's fine.
My number 9 is the scene when, like, they all find out about George and Meredith, and they're all, like, freaking out, and then George falls down the stairs. I don't know why, but that was just, like...
My favorite ship of all time.
But that was just, like... hilarious and like I could see my family having like an argument about like you know what I mean, and they're like all talking over each other and fantastic.
My favorite ship, George and the Stairs.
Yep.
So my number 9 is from 202. It is the Judy doll lunch scene.
Oh, so good. See Judy fly. 8 was all of them helping Alex study, which was not like all of them together, but like they each had like a scene. Yeah.
My 8 was 214, the hot dog eating contest.
That's so low for you. Anyway, my 7 was like when they all kind of like get together at the end and like have Thanksgiving together, and Meredith's awkwardly like just staring from the outside, like a creeper,
like creeping on her own house. Very Meredith.
Anyway,
my 7 was from 213, eating pizza in the bathroom.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was a good one. My number 6 is how like. I think we got 2 scenes of this, was like Meredith and Izzy when they got in like George's bed, like, but especially like after the date, like the bad dates, and he's just like, they're there.
Those are good. I kind of forgot those, to be honest, which is terrible. I wish I remembered those.
Anyone want to have sex?
So my number 6 is from 211, when Meredith helps Izzy after her Quint dies and Alex cheats on her. I love that moment. That's one of the reasons I love 211.
My number 5, as an overall, was the interns and the Quints.
Yeah.
Because that was great. And how, like, we kind of, like, made, like, little comparisons with the Quint. Yes, right.
My number 5 was from 203. All of them sitting with Christina after she loses her baby. During the ending speech. Yeah.
My number 4, which, as I'm reading now, kind of goes along with another one of mine, but that's fine. The, like, scene of the 5 of them standing together in the chief's office and kind of being like, we're not telling you who's going to do it.
My number 4 was from 212, the interns helping Alex in the subsequent scene in the hallway.
That's a good scene.
So, yeah.
My number 3 was from the same episode, but the scene of Izzy, George, and Meredith under the Christmas tree.
My number 3 is that scene, too. Yeah.
My number 2 is the hot dog eating contest. Really? I love that scene.
My number 2 is from 217, when Christina and Izzy are showering Meredith, and George kind of like comes in and then realizes he shouldn't be there.
That was, as we were going through, you mentioned something else from 217 or something, whatever, like another moment, and I thought of that one, and I was like, oh, I should have had that in my top 10. Mm-hmm. But I just didn't think about it until this moment. But good one. My number 1 was just all of them working together to cover for Izzy after
Me
Denny.
too. 226 and 227, the interns covering for Izzy.
Because that's
the culmination of everything they built.
Oh, yeah. And, like, I think it also just makes it more satisfying because, you know, like George and Meredith have had so many, like, issues this whole season. Alex and Izzy have had issues. Like, they've all kind of been mad at each other or, like, having issues with each other, but they all are able to come together in this moment and just, yeah.
All right, so you ready?
All day, every day.
That was good. So this one is Bailey, Miranda Bailey's character analysis. So for relationships, I just wrote her interns. It makes sense that honestly should be her biggest and almost only relationship because all the other characters should just be there to support the 5 interns. So I think that this season is the best example of being able to take Bailey, letting her show a soft side just enough to be impactful, but not extremely over, like, dramatic and super annoying.
That was one of my points, was this season kind of gave her a little bit more of a soft side because you kind of began to see her, like, you know, like she began to kind of see the interns almost as her children in some sense, but she's still distinctively Bailey.
Yes. And I think that the interns learn a ton from Bailey, but I think, and this is key, that the Bailey learns a lot from her interns, and that surprises her, and that's where you see a lot of that softening. It always has to do with the interns. You know, it's always related back to the interns, and I think that that's what season 2 does so well.
Agreed.
I mean, highlights from the season. Who would have thought that halfway through the second season, Miranda Bailey would name her son after one of her interns? Nobody.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, arguably, like, one of my favorite scenes. I don't even think I included this in, like, our top moments, like, for related in this. But, like, just, you know, like, not a shocking scene, but just, like, a really good scene was when George is able to go into the room and be like, you're Bailey, like, I expected more, and, like, get her to basically be able to have her kid. And how it was George that was able to get through to her. And I love that.
Another highlight scene that I wanted to bring up was that airplane scene from 213 with Christina.
Yes.
And her talking about, like, it's okay that you didn't want this baby. You know?
That baby.
Yeah, yeah. That it was like, it's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you you. And then also Jeremiah.
She had, like, great moments almost with every intern, because then she had a really good moment of keeping Derek from Meredith.
Yes.
Like, that whole,
wow,
like...
I totally forgot about that for a second.
Like, that was a really good moment. I mean,
Yeah.
she has, almost at the end, protecting Izzy.
There is a great Bailey Alex moment coming up in the first few episodes of season 2. I think it's episode 5 is a great Bailey Alex moment. Yeah. But yeah. So that's the big things with Bailey. The author's purpose. I mean, I think that it's pretty fairly obvious. All the interns are like teenagers and children, and every kid needs a mother figure. And I think for at least Meredith, Alex, and Christina, Bailey is the best mother figure they've had. Izzy, debatable. George had a great home life.
I love his parents.
The mommy tracking, you know what? It happens all the time in male-dominated fields. And I think when you think about Bailey's greatest fear / motivator, it is to be seen as an equal, to exude confidence, and to do her job as well as she can do it. So the mommy tracking was kind of the writers hitting her chink in her armor, just like they hit Izzy's chink in her armor.
And I feel like we definitely talked about how sometimes the mommy tracking plot annoyed us a little bit.
Still coming, folks.
But it was 100% necessary, because that is a lot of why I think she kind of lets things go as far with Izzy, and we get a lot more of that come season 3.
There is one line in season 3 that makes it all worth it, to me.
And so I think we see it, like, starting, and that's a big difference that we get in the early seasons versus later seasons, is even though this thing is, you know, annoying, and, like, same with Callie, you know, we get these things that we're like, oh, we hate this, but they're still 100% necessary, and we're like, they have a purpose and they have a reason. Whereas later, you get annoying things, and then they're like, why the hell is this here? This is stupid.
The pros outweigh the cons, my friend.
Anyway.
So, I think for season 3, I think Bailey just naturally, as the mother figure, is going to feel responsible for the actions of her children. We already saw that at the end of season 2.
But I think she's going to take it a little bit more to heart.
Mm-hmm. Almost like
too much.
Failure, like self-loathing.
Like she failed them or something, yeah.
I failed you, Anakin.
Stop. Yeah. I kind of see that coming.
Do you think she'll forgive Izzy? Do you think she is even mad at Izzy or mad at herself?
I think she's more mad at herself. Mm-hmm. Because I just still think she sees Izzy as being this able person. Like, because you see how, like, at the end when Izzy's like, I quit, and she's like, Izzy. Like,
yeah.
I don't think she's mad at her. I think she's upset with the choice Izzy made. And I think, like, in every part of her being, she's, like wants to just, like, grab her shoulders and be like, why did you do this? But she's still, like, you're my child, and, like...
Yeah, I could never not love you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, I still want you to, like, I still know you're going to be a great surgeon, blah, blah, whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Okay, so here are some questions. This one was through Twitter. So this one says, what opinions have changed about the show from when you first watched to now? So I'm wondering if that means like when from I was 9.
Or like from season 1 to now.
Yeah, I don't know. We could do both.
I feel like I understand. Like I get more of the little nuances more now, but it's my third watch through.
Mm-hmm. From when I first watched to now, see, that's like an impossible question for me to answer because, I mean, when I watched it the first time, I was literally a child.
Yeah.
I think I understand more of the humanistic choices. Like, to sound cheesy, I don't see things in black and white as much.
I think I also... in a way, I mean, like, I wasn't that young when I've watched it for the first time, but I feel like I relate a little bit better to some of the characters, because some of the things that they talk about of, like, having the struggle between being an adult and being a child, I find myself kind of relating to a lot of that, and even though, like, I'm 100% not a surgeon, not even close, but, like, I see, like, I relate to a lot more of, like, what they're talking about, what they're going through, and that kind of stuff.
I also think that the relationships that the first time watching through, adored, I kind of still adore them, but there are other ones that are growing on me a lot more. Like, for the first time watching through, Alex and Addison didn't fascinate me as much because I was a kid, and so the obvious relationship was always Meredith and Derek, because it's the most in-your-face obvious. Mm-hmm. They give them all of the longing stares, they give them their own little, like, theme music and all of that. But, like, as I've grown up, I like diving deeper and deeper into the detail and nuance.
Well, that's
and so Izzy and George and Addison and Alex fascinate me more because I'm like, oh, look at that. That's so nuanced. That's genius.
And that's, I think, one of the most fun parts of rewatching a show is kind of picking up on things that you didn't get the first time.
But also growing up with the show is
like,
fascinating.
Mm-hmm. But, like, there's just, like, so many, like, things. Like, again, you're, like, I didn't pick up on, like, some of the, like,
clues.
Yeah, like, some of the clues and stuff they were dropping, or even just, like, they would say something and I'd be like, wait, like, I totally missed this reveal, or, like, you know, like, there would be things, because, you know, like, the first time you watch it, I feel like you're very much watching as, like, watching the plot and being, like, that kind of thing, where it's, like, you get kind of a lot of the deeper things as you go along and you're studying it more.
Actually, I think I do have an answer for this. First time I watched it, I forgave Derek instantly. This time, as you know, a 20-something-year-old, as opposed to a 9-year-old, I don't forgive Derek as easily.
Well, I think...
that's the big one.
And being the, like... a lot of what they're talking about with, like, the struggles and, like, stuff like that, like, I relate to now because, like, again, like, I'm older, I've been through whatever, like, you know, I mean, like, I've had my heart broken, I mean, not, like, never had a fiance die. But you know what I mean? Like, there are certain things that have changed a lot that make me kind of, like, relate more to a character. And I do have to, like, say, like, we're coming up on, like, the first time I watched season 3, I had the hardest time going through it because I was, like, so, I don't even know if, like, emotionally attached is the right word, but, like, just so, like, that kind of way with Izzy that, like, the first couple episodes were so hard for me to get through. And I'm, like, honestly scared. Like, I have not watched the beginning of season 3 since the first time I went through it. Because, like, I remember watching season 3, episode 1, and I had to, like, stop it so many times because I was, like, bawling on the ground. And I'm like, I feel like I'm Izzy. And I'm, like, all this stuff. And I, like, could not get through it. And, like, I've never been like, yeah, I want to put myself, like, let's go cry and watch this episode. And so I'm, like, interested to see how it goes and, like, how my, like, opinion and whatever it changes with that this time.
Here's another massive one that I just thought of. Season 3 used to be my favorite season by far, and now, no way. Season 2 is out in front, you know, obviously my favorite season of Grey's, and I think it's because I grew up and I realized that the setting it up is so much more satisfying to watch in a way than watching what actually happens. Again, the mystery box is more satisfying than what's in the mystery box.
Well, and I feel like it's kind of fun being like, you know, like the first episode when Denny's introduced, and you're now watching it through this time, it's like, I'm like, I know what they're setting up. I know that he's gonna die, and so it's fun to, like, see all the little, like, things that, like, they do along the way, whereas, like, the first time you're like, oh, I love Denny. Denny's great. Like, all this stuff, but, like, really kind of looking for those things because you're like, I know what happens, but, like, I'm getting excited for, like, how they set it up.
Well, and my brain has kind of turned a little bit into a TV writer.
Yes.
Like,
100%.
I now... Thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I now see things as if I was a writer on a television show.
In shades of gray. Oh, sorry.
I always, whenever I watch anything now, I'm not just talking Grey's, but any show, any movie, I always approach it from, now why did they write this? You know, that sort of thing.
Or, like, what was the purpose?
What's the purpose? Like, why did they write this? I always approach it from an analytical point of view, kind of like an English major would approach, like, a book. And so that's changed. Anyway, next question. So we have another one coming in from, this one was Twitter. If you had to sum up each character in one word that best describes them, what would it be? Are we doing the 5 interns, or?
Yes, because it would take way too long to do everyone.
Okay.
And we're already really far in.
Whatever. It's not that bad.
I feel like for this, I've got to go back to the ocean that we talked about forever ago. I think that was almost in season 1. But
yeah,
in a way, like, I feel like that would be a good one to start with. But, like, let's see.
If you had to come up with words that aren't those ocean words, like, okay, no, seriously though, like, if you had to, like, one that's easy for me would be, like, George would be loyal. That would be a very good way to describe him.
The other ones are hard.
Christina, one word.
Honest.
That's Alex, I think.
Okay. So Alex, honest.
Izzy, optimistic? Is that one of the ocean ones? Is that the O?
I think so. No, that's openness.
Okay, optimistic, I think. Or just, like...
looks for the good in people. I don't know if there's, like, a word for that.
Idealistic is what it is. Meredith, I almost
Meredith
would
is
say
the hard
damaged.
I see that, yeah.
I mean, to take a page out of Dr. Finn Dandruff's book, damaged.
Yeah.
But not in a negative way, just in a fact. She is pretty damaged. And then Christina...
driven?
Yeah, that's good. Driven. Yeah, there you go, folks.
That's good. But it's hard because all of them could be,
10 million different words. Yeah.
All right. Top 10 best songs.
Okay, this is one of the big categories, yo. This is one of the big ones. I think I do have 10 honorable mentions.
Go ahead.
Tragedy by Brandi Carlile from 224. Fools in Love by Anera George from 203. Grace by Kate Havnevik from 227. Don't Forget Me by Way Out West from 205. Oh, gosh, I love that scene. Unlike Me from Kate Havnevik in 217. It Came Upon a Midnight Clear, Sixpence None the Richer, in 212. Ruby Blue by Rosin Murphy. That freaking name every time. From 203. Homebird by Voy Vance, 217. Today Has Been Okay by Emiliana Torini in 206. And What Can I Say by Brandi Carlile in 202.
Okay. Also, I'm going to apologize. I did not write down who these songs were by.
I can try. I can try to help.
So, I also did not... I'm really mad at myself, because a lot of how I picked these songs was the scenes and stuff that they were playing with and how they went with that, and I didn't write down the scenes that they were going with. I just wrote down the episodes.
Oh, I can help. I can help.
So you can help. So my number 10 is Not Tonight from 205.
Okay. That's Tegan and Sarah.
Yeah.
My number 10 is Wreck of a Day Acoustic by Anna Nalick, 222.
Okay. My number 9 was Somewhere a Clock is Ticking, 225.
Ugh, I love that. Yes. That's
song.
I believe that's Coldplay.
I want to say it was...
It's Snow Patrol.
Snow Patrol.
Sorry.
I was about to say it's one of the two.
It's Snow Patrol. Number 9 for me is Scratch by Kendall Payne from 215.
That was my number 8.
My number 8 is Miss Halfway by Anya Maria from 208.
My number 7 was The City Lights, 206.
Yes, that was a great one. That's by Umbrellas. Okay. My number 7 is How to Save a Life by The Fray, 221.
That was your number 7. My number 6 was Better Man, 223.
Yeah, I wanted to use that, but I don't think I did. I know. My number 6 is Song Beneath the Song by Maria Taylor, 203.
I like that one. I didn't add that one. My number 5 is Wreck of the Day, 222.
Yeah. My number 5 was Somewhere a Clock is Ticking by Snow Patrol in 225.
It's a good song. My number 4 was Tragedy, 224.
Okay. My number 4 was Nowhere Warm by Kate Havnovic, 224.
I liked that one. When was that one?
When Marshall and the Big Jim had that scene.
Yes, okay, yeah. That was a good one. My number 3, How to Save a Life, 221.
My number 3 is a bit of a dark horse. It was Sunny Road by Emiliana Torini, 211. That was... Remember that episode that I freaking love with the Quints? Like, one of my favorite episodes of television. And it was that sequence of Izzy working on the baby, and then Meredith and Derek on the Man-Pain Bridge, and she goes, "You're still you," and he goes, "I'm still me."
Okay, I remember
and it was
that.
That song is just so flawlessly used.
I remember that.
These are going to be the same. 2 and 1.
Yep, they're the same. Automatically.
They have to be.
Number 2 is Breathe, 217.
Yep, me too.
Number 1, Chasing Cars, 227.
By Snow Patrol. Yeah, so Breathe is Anna Nalick, and Chasing Cars is Snow Patrol, 227.
The sequence of both of those, you cannot beat.
Like, I can't even believe that both of those sequences with both of those songs are in the same season. Like, if you're in 2006 and you're watching The Bomb, you're like, so that's the best sequence that this show has ever and will ever have. And it's not, guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
We actually had a lot of similarities in there.
That was a very hard list for me. Better Man was so close to being on my list, but I was actually
surprised. I thought those were going to be more different. Because I feel like you're very more, like, into, like, the music and all that stuff than I am. Like...
The problem with this is that when it's only 10, there's obviously 10 that are going to stick out in any person's head. I think it's more like when you get into, like, a list of 20, I think
10, yeah.
11 through 20 would be very different.
Okay.
But there's so many good songs in this season that 10 is so easy.
Yeah. All right. The Chief.
The Chief character analysis.
And I feel like the biggest thing that we have to talk about with the Chief is Ellis.
Well, I was going to say generational parallels. Duh. Take a shot every time I say generational parallels, and you will die.
Generational parallels. Generational parallels.
Shot.
How drunk can we make people? Anyway.
I've said it a billion times. I'm going to be real quick. The Chief equals Derek. Adele equals Addison. Ellis equals Meredith. And Thatcher equals George and Finn.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about the generational, like, parallel a lot within the podcast, so I feel like we don't need to, like, super talk about it.
I just, some things I really wanted to hint on was, or to touch on, sorry, is I think it's important to understand that where the chief ended up, yes, he metaphorically, it's a metaphor as if Derek stayed with Addison. But what the show does, which makes it different from other shows, is that you have to understand that where the chief ended up wasn't bad. He had a nice, long, happy marriage with somebody that he loved, but it wasn't the love of his life. That's what's interesting.
Well, I think you also have to talk about the fact that you get a lot of hints of this is he is kind of doing the whole, like, what would it have been?
I wrote that.
Like,
he spent 25 years wondering what if.
You know, and I think that's important to point out because you obviously he's happy with Adele. Like,
yeah,
you get that happiness, but you also get a lot of the little nuances of him being like, what if I had left her for Ellis?
And I think we talk so much about how, like, it must be hard for Meredith to go into this hospital and look at the man who broke up her parents' marriage.
Granted, she didn't really know it when she chose the hospital, but...
Debatable. Because of something that happens in the season 3 premiere.
I think she kind of, like, she had the nuance, like, she thought she knew, but I don't think she, like, knew to the extent.
Well, two things. One, you can't, as the great Taylor Swift have said, somebody, like, you can't...
why we can't have nice things?
No, you can't steal, you can't quote-unquote steal somebody else without them wanting to go a little bit.
Without them wanting to
So
leave.
the fact that, yeah, exactly. So Meredith can't really blame the chief solely. It also was the fact that that marriage just wasn't going to work out between
Agreed.
Ellis and Thatcher. But I also have to, like, flip it a little bit. We always talk about how hard this is for Meredith. Imagine how hard this is for the chief, having to look at Meredith and say, this is what my life could have been. I could have been
her father.
your father. I could have helped you when you needed help.
Or even, like, if I hadn't gotten involved with your mother, your father might have actually been a part of your life, which might have helped you. Interesting. I never really thought about it from the chief's perspective.
Yeah, because we're so in Meredith's head. But
Which
I
she
think
demands.
Yeah, because she's Meredith. I think one of the biggest milestones this season was Ollie coming to the hospital to show that the chief is still not over Ellis. He's having an emotional affair. You know? And so that basically insinuates to the audience, you're supposed to be picking up on the fact that no matter how long Derek stays away from Meredith, fate doesn't change.
Well, I think you also have to look at the fact that we learn that after the chief and Ellis kind of broke it off, the chief became an alcoholic and went through a really, like, horrible time in his life and all this stuff. And I think you're really supposed to get the parallel of, like, yes, Derek left Meredith, you know, for Addison, but, like, you know, he's not necessarily, like, an alcoholic, but, like, he is going through that struggle that the chief went through, and you're supposed to kind of get that and being like, yeah, you know, like, Addison is good for him, but, like,
she's not right.
It's, like, it pains him to be away from Meredith.
And I think that that's so brilliant, because whether you realize you're picking up on or not, you are. You're picking up subconsciously on the fact that there is no amount of time away from Meredith that'll be like, oh, I'll forget, you know? Or, oh, if I give it enough time, I'll fall out of love with her. Because the chief is proof that you won't.
That it won't.
It won't. No amount of time can make it go away.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also think another highlight moment that I wanted to say was the chief talking to basically his younger self in Derek, and in a really roundabout way telling him to not make the same mistakes he made. That scene had to be in the season finale.
Great, yes.
We had to hold off on it as long as possible. So we're going to go into author's purpose now. I think the main purpose in this show, The Chief, is to show that just because people do debatably terrible things, it doesn't mean that you can declare them terrible people.
And I think it also, which I think we'll talk more about when we get into season 3, the show does a lot of bringing up the whole, you know, you can be in love with someone and them not being necessarily the love of your life.
Yeah.
And I think really the first place we really see that is with the chief. Because, you know, obviously he loves Adele. Like, that's why that they were able to make their marriage work for all these years and all this stuff. But you also have to kind of see the fact that, like, you know, we think Alice was the love of his life. And so there is that kind of distinction, and you're supposed to kind of get a little bit of a hint that, like, you know, Addison and Meredith are, you know, the love of, like, Derek's life, and what at first we're not really sure which is which, and we're kind of getting to that. But it comes into other characters as well. It's like, you can also, that love that you have,
George, right?
can also be, like, towards a friend, or, like, towards someone, you know, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, like, romantic love. And you kind of get that, and that's, I kind of love that they, in a way, and that's why I said love for being, like, a theme of this, because they go into a lot of different types of love, and, like, and types of relationships, and they kind of explore, you know, all of that, which is interesting.
I liked how George said it. You don't have to love someone to want them, and you don't have to want someone romantically to love them completely, you know? I'm also going to put this out here, and let me know if you see what I see. But I do believe that without this generational parallel, we wouldn't be so forgiving to Meredith and Derek. Because,
Agreed.
like, we almost position them as avenging the lost love between Ellis and the Chief. And as the audience, we take a step back and we're like, look, all this cheating is bad and shouldn't be ignored or pushed under the rug, but look at what happened when this all-consuming love was just ignored for years, for 25 years. Look at what happened.
Yeah.
And so I feel like Meredith and Derek are almost like this placeholder where we're like, if they get together, it'll almost be like they're avenging
almost like
that lost love. Yeah, we almost see them as a second chance. And so I feel like that's almost why the cheating doesn't seem as heinous in this circumstance.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? Into season 3, I think some serious drama between Meredith and Chief is coming. I mean, more parallels, obviously. And
I think more drama also because we kind of got Adele being a little bit mad at the Chief.
That's what I was about to say.
I think there's going to be more drama there, but then also more drama with the Chief and Alice. Like, we're going to get more of, I think, that whole triangle thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we've seen the last of Alice. I think Alice is coming back. Frankly, we haven't had Alice in a lot of episodes, and I kind of miss her, like, horribleness.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, how Adele finally told him she knows what will happen now. Will she demand something more? So anyway, here we go. Actually, this is a top 3.
Are you going to fully read?
No.
Okay. All right.
This is top 3 opening, closing voiceovers. So opening / closing. So theoretically, you should only choose one. But I cheated. In my honorable mentions.
God damn it.
So honorable mentions, the 203 closing, that's the, if there's an upside to free falling, it's the chance you give your friends to catch you.
Oh, yes, I love that.
My another honorable mention was 206 opening and closing, because I could not choose. I couldn't choose. That was the Into You Like a Train episode. And my last honorable mention was 219 closing. So that was George's closing statement.
None of those were mine.
Do you have honorable mentions?
No.
Okay. So do you want to go to your number?
None of those were my top 3 either, which is different. Anyway, this is another one I think will be different for us.
But this is interesting.
My number 3 was the closing from 212. And there's an old proverb that says you can't choose your family.
Okay, that's a very good one. Mine was 202, closing. So that was the glass half full episode where she goes, and sometimes the glass is bottomless and all you want is more.
Yep, I liked that one. My number 2 was the closing from 223. A wise man once said, you can have anything in life if you will sacrifice everything else for it, whatever.
Yeah. My number 2 is the opening from 217. That was The Sixth Sense.
That's my number 1.
Oh, okay. Not the closing, though.
No, the opening, in hospitals they say you know.
Yeah.
Mostly because I loved because if you know, what do you do about it? Forget the fact that you're scared out of your mind. If you knew this was your last day on Earth, how would you want to spend it? I love that.
And I specifically chose 217 because that was the extended one.
Yes, I did too.
My number 1 is 208 closing. Anyone who knows me knows that is the holy grail for me. That was the elevator scene where she goes, and sometimes, despite all our best efforts, fate wins anyway. Yes. And that elevator opens, and it's Derek, and you're like, I will give all of my money to this show. I will never not love this show.
But honestly, though, like, that one was that's, like, such a hard thing because, like, any of the opening and closings, like, they're all, like, really good and you can take them in different ways, and I like them.
I guess. But 208, that closing speech has always been my favorite. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, if you know me at all, you know that. Mm-hmm. So we have this. It just says, just favorite scene / moment from season 2 for each character. So we can do this. We can do this quick.
I can't choose.
How about not favorite scene, but a good scene?
Okay.
That way you're not, like, pressured, because obviously I can't filter through all the scenes.
Exactly. That's like, Izzy, I feel like you have to do, like, one of her, like, What About Me, or one of those.
I think What About Me is my favorite Izzy, or one of my favorite Izzy moments. One of my favorite George moments was, honestly...
him in the stairs. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
My favorite ship of all time. Honestly, when he finally owned up with Meredith, I think that was one of my favorite moments.
I was thinking that too.
That or the heart in the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
Christina, one of my favorite moments.
I really liked some of her and Burke's moments.
Justin.
Ooh, plot twist. Yep, that was good. Okay,
that's the one. Let's see, Alex.
I like some of his moments with Meredith. Some of their, like, talks. Or I really like that one patient, the mom, who, like, wouldn't tell her daughter, and he was like, I mean, it was super brutally honest and kind of harsh, but, like, it was just, like, this resonates with me.
What about when he helps Izzy at the very end?
That too. It's not Denny. Ugh.
Or when he talks to that kid, Scotty. That was pretty good. One of my favorites.
Or his little, like, kiss monologue thing to that one girl. That was cute.
Or when he kisses Izzy in 207. That was pretty good, too.
That was hard. Meredith, I can't choose. There's so many. The monologue from the chief.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Just her and Derek Stairs, just the umbrella of that.
You don't get to call me a whore.
You get all of those.
Pick me, choose me, love me.
Yeah. All of them.
Her whole acting in the whole bomb episode.
Her destroying the cast grabs.
Yeah, that's definitely up there for me. Yeah. What about, like, Derek? You have a favorite Derek moment?
Him and the ship between him and Man-Pain Bridge.
Yeah, so true.
The ultimate ship on the show.
I think one of my favorite Derek moments was probably the last time we kissed speech.
Oh, yes.
That was pretty good. You were, like, coming up for fresh air. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Honestly, some of my favorite Derek moments are when he does give some validation to Addison and her feelings, because I feel like that's what makes him McDreamy.
That was, I think, a really good scene was when he, like, goes up to Addison and was like, I was indifferent.
I was indifferent, yeah.
I like that.
Favorite Bailey scene?
Any of them. I'm kidding.
No, definitely not.
Her giving
any
birth
of them.
with George. That was a good scene.
That was pretty good. Yeah, I might have to sleep on that one. My favorite, the Chief scene. Derek and the Chief and
I like the fact that we
226.
can't call him anything but the Chief. Like, I try to call him Richard, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and you want to barf. My favorite Callie scene,
None.
the one where she leaves.
All scenes when she's not there. No, I'm kidding.
My favorite Addison scene.
No, I kind of liked, with Callie, I kind of like the moment when she, like, fixes Meredith's dress for her, and you're like, okay, that's kind of nice. And then she, like, gives Derek that dirty look, and you're like, just leave.
And you're like, why are you even here? My favorite Addison scene, oh my god, there's so many good ones. You know what? It might be from 201, when she sticks up for Meredith. That might be my favorite, one of my favorite Addison scenes. Or when she goes, the only two people that don't know that Derek loves Meredith are Derek and Meredith. Mm-hmm. How do I compete with that? That might be up there. That was brilliant. Did we hit them all? Burke?
His dancing scene.
Oh my god.
Hands down.
There's like dolphin roll.
Hands down. There is no other Burke scene. We need to move on. That is the ultimate
Somebody hit a beat.
Drop that beat. Anyway. George O'Malley.
Yeah. George went on a journey this season.
I was about to say, if we want to talk about the roller coaster ride of the century, George. Because he, like, started the season with, like, nothing, kind of being happy, like, oh, Derek's married, and then he, like, heart in the elevator happened, and he, like, slept with Meredith, and he got with Callie, which was even worse than him sleeping with, no, I'm just kidding.
Debatably a worse, long-lasting decision.
Like, he had to go shoot a turkey with his brothers, like...
He had to touch his dad's ass. He got
attacked by a dog.
He formed the true love of his life with Burke.
He bounced me from behind. He tries to.
I mean, yeah. So, yeah.
George, relationships. Izzy, Meredith.
I wrote Meredith, Callie, Izzy, Burke.
Okay. Burke, I feel like, is kind of fast. They get, like, the ultimate bromance.
Yeah. And honestly,
I love it.
I think the best bromance of this entire show.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And we get more, guys. We get more.
Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, I feel like George finally fulfilled his story arc that was set up from the pilot, and it went terribly. But that's kind of the point. You know? I'm almost glad that Grey's Anatomy was like, this is going to go terribly, guys. And then they were like, it went terribly, guys. Like, I almost am like, yeah, that seems realistic. I'm glad that you decided to go that way instead of, like, try to make it work between the two of them. And, like, ooh, that would have been weird.
Yeah.
But because of that utter catastrophe with the human siren, Meredith, he became BFFs with Burke. You know, he found a woman that really does truly love him and doesn't give him syphilis.
Well, and I feel like, in a way, George also kind of goes through kind of what Izzy goes through and realizes what he deserves.
You just blew my mind for a second.
In a person. Because, like, even though, you know, like, we argue that we don't like Callie and all this stuff, she truly loves George. And it's kind of like, I don't think he's ever really felt that because, let's face it, no one else he's really been with has ever been like, oh my god, George, I love you. Like,
on this show.
I mean, like, granted, we don't know. I mean, well,
we don't know about
he was
his
treasurer
past.
of the Dungeons and Dragons Club. He wasn't getting anything in high school.
Burn. Your fucking face, George. Wow.
But you know what I mean? I feel like he's finally realizing that, like, he deserves someone who's going to love him unconditionally back.
Yeah, and he's grown out of the puppy persona, which is nice. And you know what? This is Grey's Anatomy showing, look, a character can grow and still 100% be that character. He's still George, you know? So with Callie, I've said it a million times, she's a plot device. She's a bridge, in a way. She helps George get over Meredith as a disgusting distraction for him when he needed it most. He's going to be bridged to his next big storyline, but I'll stop because that's in season 3. And I think it is interesting that they decided to make her so different from Meredith.
So different from any of the other really women on this show.
And George kind of gets a taste of his own medicine because Callie is so painfully into him and he's so painfully indifferent a little bit towards her.
Oh yeah, we see more of the kind of indifference in love with that.
And guys, take note that George can't say he loves her. That is big, and that is not there by mistake.
Yes.
Let's move on to Izzy.
We kind of touched on the Izzy-George relationship a little bit with Izzy. But for George, I feel like, in a way, sometimes he takes his friendship with Izzy for granted.
Really?
I was going to say, well, because he kind of throws it away after the whole Meredith and, you know, like, that thing goes badly. And Izzy's kind of like, what the hell? I didn't do anything. And I feel like he kind of realizes, like, oh, yeah,
Okay.
like, I threw this friendship away.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see it there. But I was going to say, I wrote, Izzy is kind of his kryptonite. Because
Yes.
we've started to get clues that what she thinks about him matters a
So much.
lot to him.
Yes.
Like, way more than what anybody else thinks about him. In a way that, like, sabotages his relationships.
Oh, yeah. Which
And-
we've already started seeing.
Yeah, and I don't even think he's aware of it now.
No. And Callie has tried to point it kind of out to him a little bit, and he's just like, what? No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that that's kind of fascinating in itself. So the author's purpose, I think the main goal of George this season was just to get him to hook up with Meredith, get him rejected, and then get him past that rejection. That was the goal.
I think he went through almost the most growth as a character this, because even if you look at where we started in season 1, he failed his first surgery, did miserably, and everyone was like, this guy sucks. And he really had to get through this kind of thing. He had his whole moment with Heart in the elevator. Then he had his whole destruction of falling down the stairs and the whole hospital knowing about his failure with Meredith because he was screaming about it in a hallway.
Hashtag George in the stairs. OTP.
He has had so much growth, but he's still distinctively, as we said, George. And we do kind of, in a way, because after he does do the Heart in the elevator, he kind of gets a little bit of the cocky. Remember, he says
Ugh,
the joke or whatever to Alex, and Bailey is immediately like, no.
Shut it down.
And I love that she did that. Like, she was like Mother Bear, like, shut up. And he really listened to her, and I love that.
What I was going to say is the journey of puppy to strong, independent man while maintaining his loyalty and lovable personality is not an easy thing to do, and they did it. They freaking did it. I also think that George's anger is the first time that the intern bond was truly tested, and that shouldn't be overlooked because now as an audience, we know that that intern bond is strong enough to weather really intense storms.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like Meredith said, and I love her little speech to him in the elevator of, like, no matter, like, what happens, kind of, I'm always going to be behind you, like, and so, like, whenever you turn around, I'm still gonna be here.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not only, but I think that was representation of not only the relationship of her and George, but I think that was really the representation of intern OTP. Mm-hmm. And being like, look, we all have crazy lives, we're crazy people, but at the end of the day, we're family, and, like, if you need me, I will be there for you. And we see so much of that, especially at the end with, like, Izzy needing help, and, like, even Alex hating her, but being like, I will be there for you because we're family. Mm-hmm. And all of them and, like, Christina realizing that, like, she has this kind of kryptonite in all of them.
And so, going into season 3, this is the first time George will be completely untied from the Meredith crush. Mm-hmm. So, I can't even begin to predict, you know?
But I think it's also going to be interesting to see where he and Izzy go and where he and Callie go from
Exactly.
here.
That's another thing that I was going to say. With all the tension that Callie was able to cause in just, like, a couple of episodes, I foresee a moment when he finally has to choose between friends and Callie, and I don't know which he would choose at this point. Mm-hmm. So that should be interesting.
Yeah. So, since we talked so much about Callie in that, top 5 Callie Tallie moments. Whoop whoop.
Yes. Yeah, I have a few... Well, no, I have one honorable mention, or as I like to say, a dishonorable mention. Just that she is constantly trying to separate George from his friends, which is, first of all, unhealthy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, ladies and gentlemen out there, that's not healthy to have somebody in your romantic relationship that's constantly trying to take you away from your friends.
Yeah.
But it's also just annoying because she's interrupting, like, the best thing about the show.
She's trying to get in the way of intern OTP, and quite frankly, we hate it.
Yeah, the intern bond will not break.
Number 5.
Yeah, go for it.
My number 5 was her trying to tell Meredith off, but Meredith just not caring and staring at her like, I will destroy you, woman.
Yeah, like she wanted...
Her face was like, are you ready to explode in flames? Because that's what I'm going to do to you.
Are you ready to see your own heart?
So rip it out of your chest.
Yeah, basically. My number 5 is just... She lives in the basement of the hospital. Like, if that wasn't just a massive red flag, I don't know what is. That's creepy.
My number 4, her sex dungeon.
Yes.
That's what it's called. It's the sex dungeon. She doesn't live in the basement of the hospital. It's the sex dungeon.
Yeah, she lives in her sex dungeon. Like
that's my number 4.
Monster. Okay, so my number 4 is... So, I have to forgive Meredith, but you don't?
Ugh.
Yeah, I know.
Why do you have to forgive Meredith, Callie?
What did Meredith do to you? Yeah, 225.
Number 3, her horrible hair. That, good lord, keeps getting worse. Like, hair and makeup, can we fix this?
Come on, hair and makeup.
Because, like, I've seen pictures of Sarah Ramirez. Her hair is better than this.
Yeah.
Her hair deserves better.
It's so true. Like, I feel bad for the actress.
And her hair in 227 at prom, and she's like, I worked so hard on this, and we're like...
She's like, I shaved my legs, and I'm like, can you please fix your hair?
And you're like, stop shaving your legs and fix your hair. Anyway.
So my number 3 is... You have to stand up for me. From 224.
Barf. Barf. My number 2 is just overarching her insecurity over Izzy. You like Izzy more than me. Everyone does, Callie.
It's like, can you blame him? Have you met yourself? Anyway, so my number 2 is her hair every episode.
Ugh, so true. Number 1, and I feel like this might be your number 1 too. Her frickin' bathroom scene when she walks in naked. God damn it.
Yes.
Horrible. And then she's like, George, why are they so mean to me? Because you peed naked in front of them, Callie. And you didn't wash your fucking hands.
Oh.
I don't care who you are. That's weird. End of discussion. We're horrible.
That's also my number 1.
End of discussion. We're done. Callie sucks.
Woo! So true.
Which, to go on to another thing, we have this question next.
Yeah, this was sent in to us.
What is your favorite positive thing about Callie?
What is your favorite, in parentheses, positive thing about Callie? Okay, so we joke a lot about Callie. And we 100% put this question in this order on purpose. So in your fucking face, whoever sent this in to us.
After we destroyed her.
No, okay, so honestly, there are two things about Callie that I find extremely positive. Extremely. One is she is, for everything that's wrong with her, she is a brilliant plot device. Brilliant.
Brilliant, yes.
I would never change her as a plot device.
I was going to say, as much as I complain about her and everything, her purpose in this and the reason they have her character being in this show, dead on, amazing, love it.
And honestly,
what she does to the George-Izzy relationship, brilliant.
I would debate that she's supposed to be annoying. And so, like, a little bit. She's supposed to be a little bit weird. She's supposed to be a little bit annoying. And if that's what they're going for, they killed it. And two, I really enjoyed that scene with Meredith, where she helped Meredith and was like, this is what it looked like in a human.
Yes.
I really did. There was nothing wrong with that scene.
I loved her
in that scene.
We got one instance of it in this season. We'll get some more of it later. Some of her interactions with patients, I love, and how she can connect to some of her patients. We got it with the kid who cut off his own finger, dummy.
Heath.
But, like, we get it later. Like, she connects very well to a lot of those patients, which I like. She gets, not as much this season, but she does get a couple good one-liners later.
She Sarah Ramirez can pull off a one-liner. I will say that. Mm-hmm. She's freaking hilarious in the future.
Yeah.
With some one-liners, yes. Okay, so there's some positive things about Callie. Are you happy now?
Yeah.
All right, so now we have top 10 speeches. This is another big one. I actually don't have 10 honorable mentions. I have 4.
Go ahead.
Are you proud of me?
No.
Burke to Christina about being in love with her from 218. George when he's saying, I have a couple of families from 225.
Yes.
Bailey to Christina on the airplane, 213.
Yes.
And the individual intern speeches from 226. 227. Sorry.
I was supposed to say the monologues, you mean?
Yeah, sorry. The monologues from 227.
How is that an honorable mention? Anyway.
Get ready for my list, baby.
I feel like we're going to have a couple similarities.
Mm-hmm.
My number 10 is loving you is the most exhausting.
Okay.
I loved that. Like, when she says that and is, like, talking... it's short, but it's great.
You know, that might actually be one of my top Meredith scenes. That's a good note. My number 10 is I'm her mother, but I'm not her mom. From 215.
I forgot about that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
9 was Meredith's speech to George in the elevator about, like, I'll always be here when you turn around or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I missed that one.
Loser.
Dang it. Oh, okay.
Right? It's so annoying and you, like, realize something and you're like...
I missed that one.
Yeah.
That should have been an honorable. My number 9, you were, like, coming up for fresh air, 201.
Yeah, that was... If I had made an honorable mention list, that would have been on it. Mm-hmm. My number 8 was when Burke is talking to Christina and the, like, whole, like, I wasn't the most talented student in school.
Yeah, that was
I wasn't
good.
The brightest, but I was the best.
Yeah. My number 8 is an hour ago he was proposing, 227.
Oh, I didn't do that. Damn it.
There were some that were more of lines and less of speeches.
That was my hard thing, is because, like, so many of that was, like, I was like, I loved this, but I was like, that's a line, and... But whatever.
I counted that as a speech, but I could see it going the other way.
Yeah, anyway. My number 7 was from 222, George's speech to Thatcher.
Yep, that's my number 7. Meredith is anything but cold. Oh.
That's a good one. Number 6 is a line, but I don't want my mother to die alone, 215.
I'm gonna call that one out a little bit. That's a line. That's not a speech. But
That's
okay,
fine.
whatever.
But I added it because, meh.
Whatever. So my number 6 is Pick Me, Choose Me, Love Me from 205.
I'm so interested in to see what else was above that. Anyway, my number 5. It was a Thursday morning. 217. Derek.
Yep.
So good.
My number 5 is You Don't Get to Call Me a Whore from 224.
Mm-hmm. That's my number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is Christina's to Justin, 212.
Oh, I didn't count that. That was a good one.
That is by far, I think, Christina's, like, best speech. Like, one of the best speeches on the show.
I'll put that in my number 6 since you called out my I don't want my mother to die alone. I'll put that as my number 6.
So what's your 3?
The intern monologues from 227.
Yeah, I know.
I love those. Especially Christina and Meredith's. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
My number 3 is The Last Time We Kissed from 217.
My number 2, Pick Me, Choose Me, Love Me.
My number 2 is That's Not Denny, Not Anymore. Alex,
I
227.
didn't include that one. I should have included that one. And our number 1, I feel like, is the same. What About Me?
What About Me? Izzy fucking Stevens,
Amazing.
225.
Amazing.
And, you know, a lot of these lists, like, if you asked me in a month, they would change. So,
I feel like
they're a little bit...
There are, like, some, like, What About Me would always be my number 1, I think.
Yeah.
And a lot of these would be, like, the same. Like, Pick Me, Choose Me, Love Me is always going to be on this list.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, some of that, like, You Don't Get to Call Me a Whore, going to be on this. Like, I feel like there's going to be, like, that kind of stuff. But then, like, talking to you, I'm like, I forgot so many, like, speeches that I was like, oh, like, I wanted to mention
that's
that.
exactly why I wanted to keep these lists a secret.
Yeah. All right, Derek Shepherd. And I feel like, do you want to just include Addison in with him?
Yeah, we're going to do that. We were going to do them back to back, but I think we're just going to kind of, like, read some bullet lists.
Because, we really already talked about the whole Meredith-Derek relationship, so I feel like we don't really have to go
too in-depth on that
back into that one.
I actually wrote, one of the first things I wrote was, Derek is kind of a foil in this season with Burke, at least in motivating competition.
I can see that. Yes, we definitely get kind of, like, the competition between him and Burke, but I think one of the big things that we should talk about is the Derek-Addison relationship.
I wrote Addison and Meredith, yeah.
And we already covered Meredith, so we don't have to go back into
Well,
that.
sometimes we'll get to that. Let's start with Addison.
Okay.
The biggest thing I want to write, I just want to get out right away. Addison and Derek are a completely valid, lovable, and shippable couple. And that's what makes this love triangle different from most love triangles.
Yes. Because in most love triangles and other shows, I feel like there's clearly, like, the one couple that everyone chooses, and then, like, this other kind of person that's,
debatably, there is here, too, but... Like I don't know if anybody would be like, I want Derek to stay with Addison. But it's not because of Addison, it's just because Derek is miserable.
But not even. Like, I think he has his happy moments with Addison. I think it's just...
He has clear chemistry on both sides. Mm-hmm. But it's different. It's like a Twilight-type love triangle. You get, like, people picking sides when clearly the show is trying to say...
This is who they're supposed to be with.
This is who they're supposed to be with, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't 100% be with the other person, too.
And that was kind of my going into season 3. I'm really interested to see the Derek-Addison relationship not in this marriage. Because obviously I think we can all agree that, like, that marriage is over. Mm-hmm. And so I think, like, it's going to be really interesting to see that relationship not in the, like, marriage form, and kind of what becomes of that, and how...
Well, I wonder how long it'll last. Like, how quickly is this marriage going to end in season 3?
I think it's already over.
Well, yes, but I mean, like, technically end.
Oh, I think both of them are already no. I think it's...
No, but I mean, like, are they going to start the season with the divorce papers signed? Are they going to start the season...
I think it's going to be very quick after the season starts. Yeah. Granted, I'd know when it happens, but if I was watching this the first time, I think it's going to be very quick.
I mean, Derek treats Addison and Meredith like crap this entire season. I mean, he does, and I forgive it mostly because Patrick Dempsey's face, but also because he's basically in purgatory himself, because it's that classic tale of, do you stay with somebody out of obligation, or should you go after true love? And I think that Grey's Anatomy did a really good job of showing it's okay to get divorced.
Well, and I think it's also, the thing is, he's not being like, I'm just staying in this marriage because, like, of something else. It's like, he does truly love Addison, and I think
there was a time and place for Addison.
And I think that's what the show is going for, is it's like...
People change and evolve.
Divorce isn't necessarily you being a bad person and being, like... Or, you know, like, him choosing Meredith isn't necessarily, like, him being a bad person. It's, he does love Addison, but she's not the love of his life. Again, that same
But my point is that maybe when he married Addison, that was the right person for him to be with for 10 years. And maybe they were only supposed to be together for 10 years, you know? Mm-hmm. And maybe Meredith is the person he's supposed to be with for the rest of his life. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not saying that, like if
it's a bad thing, or...
Yeah, I'm saying I think Addison might have been his greatest love for those 10 years. You know what I'm saying? But I think people evolve and change, and I think that that's valid. I think it's kind of weird to assume that the person that you marry as a 22-year-old is somebody that you know 100... Oh, I'm going to be happy with them when I'm 82. I mean, you don't know. You know, people change over their life, and I don't think that you should fight that change. And also, I respect the Addison-Derek relationship forever because they had Derek choose Addison. Drama,
yes.
First of all, and he will never wonder now, what if I stay with my wife? He will never have that wonder because he's already done it. So when he goes with Meredith, he will never... That voice in the back of his head won't be there because he knows what would happen. I think the way that he fell in love with Meredith was almost sobering for him because of that intensity. Like, the intensity of the love he feels for her was kind of, like, shakes him to his core. Mm-hmm. I think we almost see it shocking him how much he's in love with her.
Yeah.
Would you say that Derek is the next most important character besides the 5 interns?
I almost think that there's, like the 5 interns are, like, in the middle, and then there's, like, another group, because I almost put, like...
There's, like, a second tier.
Because, like, if we're going to argue that Derek is second, like, I think the next tier would be, like, Derek, but then I think you also have to include Addison and then the generational thing, because that's...
I would say 5 interns, Bailey, Derek, Addison, and then, weirdly, kind of the Chief, Burke, and Callie are on... Well, the Chief and Burke, and then Callie's, like, a 4th tier. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I also kind of just looking into season 3, I like how the show made the choice to not ask the question, will they or won't they? You know, we all know they're going to end up together. I mean, you're an idiot if you don't know that.
Yeah.
The question isn't will they end up together,
when.
it's how will they end up
when.
together. But it's more how, and I like that. Because right now it's kind of...
Like, when will they end up together?
I see it as how. Because right now I'm like, man, how is Meredith going to maneuver this relationship between Finn, who she really does like, and Derek? You know, it's like interesting in that sort of way. And then into season 3, all I can say is, what does this mean? What does this mean?
Yeah.
And that's really the big question. What are the implications of this all-consuming love? And then for Addison, I mean, I do like that she kind of just... It takes episodes and episodes and episodes, but you see it dawning on her that her husband is in love with somebody else. Yes. And that, I think, Kate Walsh played brilliantly. Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing, like, important thing that, like, we got hints of it kind of at the end of the season, but I feel like we're really going to get it in season 3 is, you know, really in season 2, a lot of what she dealt with was the whole love triangle thing. But towards the end, and now, like, into season 3, we're going to start seeing Addison as her own person. Mm-hmm. And she's going to start having these relationships with other people besides, you know, Meredith, Derek.
Mm-hmm. And she...
Because we kind of started getting an inkling of that with the whole Alex thing. Mm-hmm. But now that, you know, we're all basically being like, well, their marriage is over, it's kind of going to be, how does she react to that? How does she become her own person? You know, how does she move on from that?
Also, I think part of the thing, I don't really think that she hates Meredith.
No.
You know? Which is interesting in itself as well. Because I don't think that she... Like, I think that she obviously is jealous of Meredith and kind of resents her, but I don't think she hates her because I think she realizes that Meredith is not the anti-Addison. I think that they have more in common than she wants to admit.
Well, I also think she realizes that, like, what happened to the Addison-Derek marriage was not because of Meredith. Mm-hmm. You know, it started falling apart because of Addison's choice to...
It was falling apart before that, though.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think that was at first, when she came to Seattle, we were like, oh, she hates Meredith because, like, she thinks blah, blah, blah. But then you get that in her, like, Meredith is in the wrong, like, like she was...
When she defends her?
Yeah, and all that stuff, and I think that's what she realizes, is that, like, Meredith didn't know about any of this when anything happened, and it's not her fault. And you can very much see, I feel like, Meredith kind of being like no to Derek, and like stop looking at me like that, and all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like Derek can't help himself, but I don't know.
Addison's also so unique because she is one of the rare cases on television where a plot device turns into a fan favorite.
Yes.
And that is just, all that is fantastic writing and fantastic acting.
I was about to say Kate Walsh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because
do you think Addison will go back to New York?
I hope not.
I think she has a reason to stay with Alex. Not romantically, but because she's kind of like wants to save him from himself almost.
Mm-hmm. I don't think she has anything back for herself in New York. That's the thing. I think the person that she was in New York is no longer the person she is. And I think going back to New York would almost be harder.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Top 5 episodes. This one was weird. I didn't like this one.
Really? I kind of enjoyed this.
I don't know, because I liked each episode in its own way and for a different reason. And so it was hard for me.
All right, so I have 5 honorable mentions. 209, Thanks for the Memories. 221, Superstition. 212, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. 211, Owner of a Lonely Heart, which kind of unbelievable because I've always said that that's my favorite. 215, Break On Through, which was so close to making this list, but just didn't.
I feel like this is going to be a better category when we get into the seasons where I don't like every episode. Like, you know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah. I like almost every episode this
like
season.
that was the thing was that I didn't like about it, is because I was like, well, I like them all just for different reasons, but whatever. Number 5 for me was 216.
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
My number 5 was 203, Make Me Lose Control.
My number 4 was 206.
My 4 was 205, Bring the Pain.
Mm-hmm. My 3 is 225.
My 3 is also 225, 17 seconds.
I feel like our top 2 are going to be the same.
I don't think so.
Or similar. Maybe. My 2 is 217.
My 2 is the 2-parter. I don't know if that's cheating, but
yes.
216/17, it's the end of the world as we know it.
That's cheating, but we'll allow it.
Alright, well, you're not going to be happy with my 1.
Whatever. My number 1 is 227.
Yeah, okay, so my number 1 is the finale, the 2-hour
sequence, yeah.
The 2-hour finale, 226 and 227.
See, they were the same.
Alright, so now we have a fun little category.
Ugh, this one was hard.
What? Top 10 worst patients.
And, like, truthfully, a lot of the people on my list weren't even because of them. It was because of, like, their families.
Also, they were, like, a lot of these people on my list weren't bad patients. They were just kind of boring. Like, they were just kind of, like, not as interesting as other patients.
Fair, yes.
Dishonorable mentions. Zona.
She's not even in this season. That doesn't count.
I wanted to see what you would say. I actually didn't have that written. I don't have any dishonorable mentions.
She's still the worst, anyway. She still is. Number 1 overall for seasons 1 and 2, Zona.
It's so true.
Worst patient.
Terrible. All right.
My number 10 was Millie Reynolds, 224, because if you take her out, literally nothing would change about that episode.
My number 10, this actually might surprise you, Sav, 208. She was more annoying than she was fun to me. Although I liked what she did for Addison and Derek, but whatever. I can't.
You might be surprised by it anyway. My number 9 was Julie, 201.
Freaking Julie. Oh, I hated her. My number 9 was Mufasa. Jake Mufasa Burton from 218.
My number 8 was Kelly. Dr. Shepard. Ugh,
learn how to make my list.
Learn how to speak, Kelly.
My number 8 was Calpana from 204.
Calpurnia. Ugh. That's how we said it.
Calpurnia. No, I said it like 5 different ways.
That's fair.
I recently went back and listened to that, and I said it like 4 different ways in one sentence.
My 7 was Heath. 1 for his name.
Freaking Heath.
And 2 because he freaking cut off his own finger because he's a dumbass. Anyway.
My number 7 was Julie from 201.
God, Julie. My number 6 was Tim because of his annoying children from 212.
Ugh. My number 6 was Rick, the fingers guy from 214.
Ugh, I forgot him.
Exactly.
He's a good one. Anyway. My number 5 was Nadia, also from 212, because again, her family sucked.
My number 5 was Penny Gibson from
She was
220.
Her husband was freaking weird.
Her husband and her weird ass like fountain haircut.
Right, I forgot about her fountain haircut.
Wow.
My number 4 was Toilet Man.
I forgot him. I think it's because I enjoyed him. Like, I really enjoyed him.
Like, I enjoy
Toilet
his
Man.
purpose, but he just bothers me as a human being.
My number 4 is Keith Polace from 219.
Ugh.
And his horrible fiance, Amy.
God, Amy. Ugh. My number 3 was Calpurnia because I don't have any friends, so I'm gonna drug myself so I get sick so I can go to the hospital. You need help, Calpurnia.
Have you met Callie?
Go be friends.
My number 3 is Sean Beglight, I think is his name, from 219. The little kid that hit his head with a baseball.
With the 2 gay fathers.
Yeah.
Okay, he was kind of
He was just kind of boring.
Yeah, I see that. My number 2 was frickin' Rose. 223.
My number 2 was Yummy from 214.
I liked Yummy.
She's so boring.
She is.
See, that's what I'm saying. I just picked the ones that I found the most boring. Like, not even the most annoying, just the most boring.
My list is 100% most annoying.
Yeah, mine were just boring.
And you can guess, my number 1, Sav and Weiss. God damn it.
Freaking Sav
I
and
hate
Weiss.
them.
Is
I
it
get them.
Derek?
They have a good purpose, but, like, they could have had better personalities. Come on.
Man.
Weiss was horrible.
Yeah,
Like,
the
honestly-
Addison and Derek B team.
Honestly, if Sav had come to the hospital by herself, she probably wouldn't be on this list.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she might have been in, like, a dishonorable mention or something, but I feel like she would not be on this. Like,
wouldn't be
Rose
number
would be my
one.
number 1.
You know there's gonna be next year's holiday cards.
God damn it.
And what is that accent? Anyway, my number 1 was Heath from 220.
God. He's so
Every time I
stupid.
see him on, like, every time I watch that episode, I'm like, ugh.
Also,
Heath.
get a better name.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so guess now move on to Christina and Burke character analysis.
Yep,
Who do you want to start with, Christina or Burke?
Christina.
All right.
So, relationships I see for Christina. I kind of see Christina as one of the core 3 characters, being Meredith, Christina, and Derek, in a weird way. Like, I feel like there's the 5 interns, but then there's, like, also this core 3. Mm-hmm. They're almost like the face of the show.
I can see that.
Yeah. And I split it into Meredith and Burke as her relationships.
I agree. Because we kind of already talked about her relationship with the interns as a whole, but we didn't really go into the whole Christina Meredith vibe, which I feel like is different.
It's just like one of the greatest friendships ever portrayed on television, I think, between 2 women.
Because it's not necessarily the, like, super lovey, like, I don't know how to explain it, like, optimistic, kind of like...
Well, like, girly
Yeah.
friendships.
They're 2 very, like, sarcastic people. Like, most of their interactions with each other are very sarcastic, and we do get some pretty, like, intimate moments with the 2 of them. Like, you know, when Christina tells Meredith that she's her person and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I love their friendship. It's almost one of my favorite relationships on this show.
I mean, this is a quote from season 7, but it's really not going to spoil anything. Meredith calls Christina her soulmate, you know? And Derek's the love of my life, but you're my soulmate, is what she says. I kind of see Christina, the love of Christina's life as Burke, but her soulmate is Meredith. Yeah.
Like that kind of friendship, soulmate kind of thing.
Yeah, because I always liked that idea of, like, a soulmate and the love of your life aren't necessarily the same person.
Well, that's kind of what we talked about earlier with, like, the different kinds of love. Like, you know, you can love someone, but not, like, they won't be necessarily, like, the love of your life. And I feel like this is kind of one of the different types of love, being maybe, like, a soulmate or just something else of, you know, you have that deep connection with someone, but you're not, like, it's
In
not
love.
like romantic in any way, you know, it's just your friendship in that sense.
And Meredith is, like, the only one that can get Christina to do things that she normally wouldn't, because I think Meredith's opinion is the most important of anybody on Earth to Christina. Even debatably more important than Burke.
At times, yes. I think so.
I mean, okay, so 201 establishes that Meredith and Christina are each other's person, which, genius. Like, just that whole
setup
term, almost, like the term of "you're my person." Mm-hmm. It's kind of like instantly a classic.
I just love it. And this constitutes hugging. Shut up, I'm your person.
Yeah, it's like...
It's so cute.
Refreshing, and it's awesome. So, moving on to Burke, though. I am just going to say this. Burke is Christina's best love interest, and I will have a physical fight against anybody who tells me different.
We can argue that when it comes.
Yes, but I just think that this is the holy grail for Christina here.
I think he is just such a fascinating love interest for her because they are so different
yin and yang
in many ways, and yet there are other things that like they just completely see eye to eye. They understand each other. Like, I even say, like, the one thing, like, the one quote that he had when he's talking about, you know, how he wasn't the brightest like Christina was, but he's like, but I was the best and all that stuff. And she, like, immediately is like, I completely understand what you're saying. And, like, you know, like, they're able to kind of have those things where, like, a normal person would be like, what are you talking about? Like, that's weird. But they're like, yes. And, you know, she might not have, like, you know, that whole thing they have too is she doesn't know who Eugene Foote is, and they're kind of like, wow, you're dating and you don't know Burke's favorite player, but she's like, but I get him on a different level.
Yeah, like the deep level, like more of like I get him his essence as a person instead of like his trivial, oh, this is my likes and dislikes, you know?
And I feel like they also like bring some like interesting things out of each other. Like, I feel like Christina kind of brings Burke out of his kind of like perfect like intellectual self, like, you know, like she got him to dance in the one episode, you know, like that kind of stuff, and he kind of helped in a way get her out of the robotic sense and give her a little bit of emotion, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
which is like good. Like, I don't see that as necessarily being a bad thing. I think that's a good thing for both of them, and it's interesting.
But I think that she also helped him stop being so much of a robot as well.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was talking is like,
yeah, it's like two robots that fell in love with each other and now their hearts are beginning to beat.
Synchronized beating.
Oh my god. Yeah. So the author's purpose with Christina here. When writing Christina, I do believe that the authors first and foremost wanted to create a character that television had not seen before.
Mm-hmm. The cynical, kind of really smart.
She says things
sarcastic.
that cross lines sometimes, where you're like, dang, I didn't think that they would have her go that far.
Oh, yeah. But it's great. I love it. Like, and that's the interesting thing about Christina is I feel like, you know, you hear all the time, you know, people like or dislike Meredith. I mean, we had the question earlier. People like and dislike Izzy. But most people who I've talked to that like watch Grey's Anatomy like Christina. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. For season 2, though, I feel like they wanted to take this character that they set up in season 1 as being just cold and robotic, and they really wanted to get to the root of what it is that would finally get her emotional. And I think the obvious answer is Burke and the other interns. Because even her mother in 203 and 204, you know?
That just got her angry.
It didn't strike an emotion, but she cries at the end of 204 because of Burke. You know?
Well, I think that also a little bit had to do with, like, having lost the baby. And I think even though she was, like, going to get rid of it in some sense, we see later that she, you know, like, she asks Bailey about it. And I think, in a way, she kind of had started developing almost a relationship. And she was kind of, I think the crying was, too, like, confusion over, like, why am I upset over this fact that, like, I was going to get rid of anyway? Like, it didn't matter to me. But I think she was upset. And you see that, like, you see it kind of developing all season. And then it really kind of culminates when she, like, is crying to the chief. And you're like, wow. Like, this is a very different Christina than the one we were introduced to in season 1. But in a good way. Like, an interesting way.
I think Shonda said it perfectly because it's like she's starting to feel these human feelings. And it's interrupting her pursuit for perfection for the first time in her life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so into season 3.
I'm very interested to see how the Burke-Christina relationship grows, because we had this kind of big moment at the end of 227 with her kind of going in and kind of showing her support for him. And so it's kind of, I feel like, wondering where that support's going to go and like how that's going to kind of develop and grow their relationship, because I don't think it's going to, I think it's just going to be like a good thing for it. And so it's going to like, I don't know how to say that better.
Weirdly enough, when you actually like take a step back and think about it, Burke and Christina are kind of the show's power couple. They're the only couple that's been together for a long time and been pretty stable for a long time.
Which is hilarious that they're the show's power couple.
Yeah, but they are. And I think that like the show's probably going to inject a little drama in there in season 3.
Yeah, probably.
They've kind of had an easy ride so far.
I mean, I feel like they definitely are starting to kind of inject drama, because I think, like, the hand tremor thing with Burke,
yeah,
definitely not going away, and so, like, half of it is also thinking they might, that might cause drama between them, or it could be something completely, I don't know, maybe Burke has a secret lover, I don't know.
Yes, I do. Anyway, so for Burke, though, the relationships, I wrote down Derek and Christina, weirdly enough. Derek and Burke are kind of like the George and Alex, because, like, hear me out. In 201, they're extremely against each other because they're all competition.
Oh, yeah.
And then the midpoint of season 2 was the bomb, where they finally kind of, like, are starting to call each other by their first names and, trying to... They're, like, growing a little bit together. And then at the end of season 2, Derek performs surgery on Burke, and they have, like, that bro moment about fishing.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that friendship is really going to be featured in season 3.
Yeah. I like that friendship, because it's kind of the, like...
Unexpected,
but then it also has, like, there's still, like, that slight competitive edge in their friendship. Like, I feel like it's kind of, like, that fun, like, competitive a little bit, like...
I think it's interesting because I wonder if Derek would have been friends with Burke in his New York version of himself, or if this is showing that he's become a different person in Seattle.
Well, I think that is an interesting point you brought up, because we did meet 2 of Derek's friends from New York, because we met Mark this season and we met Weiss. Ugh. Yeah. And Burke is very different from both of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's an interesting point you brought up.
Yeah, and, the author's purpose about Burke, I mean, we hear a lot about people complaining about Burke, and, like, he kind of slips to the background a lot, but I would almost argue that that's kind of the point of his character. Like, he's not an in-your-face, like, needs to have a ton of screen time kind of character, but what screen time he does have, he plays between the lines very effectively.
Well, and, we've talks about this endlessly, that this show is about the 5 interns and it's about them, and so there's a reason that he kind of slips to the background, because like like he's involved with Christina, but he's still not like we were talking about the tiers and stuff of like the shows, and I think we put him in like tier 3, like, so he's not even as important, I would say, as, well, I don't know if important is the right word, but prominent as like Bailey or Derek,
Yeah.
And so I think that's why he kind of takes more of a background stance.
I would be fascinated to hear what people had to say about him after watching season 2 only. Like, after watching seasons 1 and 2 and season, like, back in 2006, what they were saying. Because I see him as almost like the, quote, reasonable man from law school. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of how he is. It's kind of Chief-like when you think about it.
Yeah. Which is also kind of funny, because he does seem like that kind of reasonable man, and then you, like, look at all of the people around him, and you're like, how does he function? Like, I feel like Burke is constantly like, who am I working with? What is happening in this hospital?
What is happening?
But then, like, also he does weird things too, so you're like, you kind of belong here, Burke.
Exactly. And that's, like I was saying earlier in this podcast, I feel like the subtleness of Grey's Anatomy is what stands out to me now, as opposed to just the in-your-face obvious. So the more I watch the show, the more attracted I am to subtle storylines and subtle characterization. Yeah. And Burke is, like, the epitome of that. And into season 3, just 3 things real quick. Shonda made a point to mention that Burke has hand tremors.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely going to be something that we see, I feel like, right in the first little bit of season. Because they're that wasn't a mistake, like, showing that and showing it very kind of, like, prominently in the season finale.
Number 2 is that the Chief should be retiring soon.
Theoretically.
But, like, he's already kind of talked about it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And number 3 is where the Burke and Derek friendship, will it continue or not?
Mm-hmm.
So,
will the bromance continue?
Will the bromance continue? So anything else for those two?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much covered it.
All right. So we have this question sent in. This was from a friend of the podcast. Yet again, different friend this time, though. Can you please match the interns to the different seasons of the year?
Well, it's weird because there's 4 seasons and there's 5 interns.
Right.
So that's confusing.
But we'll make it work.
I feel like Christina would be winter because she's, like, kind of cold and harsh at times.
Yes. I feel like...
But, like, pretty in the snow. I don't know.
So is Izzy spring or summer? I want to say spring, almost.
Mm-hmm. Like the warm, but, like, with the pretty flowers and...
Like hope, almost.
Okay.
And then I want to say George is summer.
Okay. Like,
because Meredith is 100% fall. You know what I mean? Like, just that vibe. Like, how we talked about how Meredith is red.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What would Alex be?
I would say...
More of, like, winter.
Yeah, winter.
Maybe, like, that little bit time, like, right at the end of fall before winter. You know, kind of cold.
Autumn.
Autumn is the same as fall. We're trying to make a 5th season here, guys. We tried.
Yeah.
That time when you lose an hour and it sucks. That's Alex.
That's Alex. Yep.
No.
So I guess that's
Alex.
good enough. And here's another question. What is your favorite thing about the show? I would say its commitment to realism in the first few seasons.
I was kind of similar. I was going to say how relatable a lot of the characters are, because I feel like...
And a lot of the storylines are.
Yeah.
Not over the top. It's like they're very self-aware of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. And just, I don't know, I feel like I can see myself in little bits of, like, at least each of the 5 interns.
I mean, Shauna's always said that she wanted the show to feel like each week you were tuning in to hang out with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 100% true for the first 3 or 4 seasons. And not so much later on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably my favorite thing about the show. So now we have the Holy Grail, the top 10 list you have all been waiting for. Top 10 best patients.
Which was arguably, like, the hardest list to compile. Because I was like, do I go for, like, the top ones that made me laugh? The top ones that helped me, like, connect things great with the interns? The ones that had the best storyline? There were just so many things, man. It was so hard. In 27 episodes worth of patients, it was so hard.
So do you have any honorable mentions, though?
I do, actually.
I have 10.
Be proud. I have 6.
Okay, so I'll do all mine, you do all yours.
Okay.
So Gwen Graber, 223.
Mm-hmm.
Addison from 219. Bomb Guy from 216/217.
Okay.
Maurer from 213. Eric/Steve from 210. Mary and Yvonne from 206.
I forgot about Yvonne.
Yeah.
My girl.
Exactly, our spirit animal. Porn Guy from 205. Anna Chu from 205. Ellis Gray from 203 through 205. And Mr. Hubble from 202.
Interesting. Okay. So my honorable mentions were Maurer, 213. Porn Guy, 205. Gwen Graber, 223. Beatrice, 222. The Pregnant Man, 207. And Mr. Hubble, 202.
Nice. Mr. Hubble's great. I miss him. Anywho.
Maurer.
Tell him what you ate.
Maurer's my love.
I know.
Anyway.
Yvonne, baby.
And Yvonne, excuse me. And Yvonne.
Some redneck tried to outrun the train. Gives me life.
She killed me.
So my number 10 is Grace Bickham from 215.
Mm-hmm. My number 10 was, like, Scotty and his family from 202.
202. Okay. My number 9 is Burke from 225 to 227.
Interesting. My 9 is Justin, 212.
Okay. My 8 is Bonnie/Tom from 206.
My number 8 is Grace Bickham, 215.
My 7 is the Quints, 210, 211.
My 7 is Dory and the Quints,
Cool.
210, 211. Nice.
My 6 is Holden McKee from 209. He's the guy that was asleep for 16 years.
Yes. I totally forgot about him.
Honorable mention.
Interesting. Okay. My number 6 was Heart in the Elevator, 205.
Okay. My number 5 was Christina from 203 to 204.
Christina. My number 5 was Bomb Guy.
Okay. My number 4 was Cheyenne Wood from 215.
So good. My number 4 is Ellis, 203.
Okay. My number 3 is Justin from 212.
My number 3 was Bonnie and Tom. But mostly, I feel like mostly for the Bonnie part for 206, but kind of what she did to Meredith.
Right. So the number 2 is the last one that we both don't know.
Yeah.
So my number 2, do you have a guess?
I'm trying to think of who you haven't mentioned.
I'll just say it. Heart in an Elevator, 205.
My number 2 is Cheyenne, 215.
Okay.
I love that storyline.
Yeah.
And with Izzy, I love that.
You know, I feel like if I had to redo this list today, and again, it might be different in a month.
Oh, it would be different in an hour if I did it. Like,
Yeah.
if I did it now and then I did it again in an hour, it would be different. Like,
Yeah.
it would have a lot of the same people and, like, the same, like... But Holden would probably be at least in an honorable mention now, that you, like, mentioned that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it changes.
If I had to redo it, I think Ellis Gray would definitely take Burke's spot.
And see, that was also because... I don't know why I do this, but, like, every time I think about patients, I forget about, like, the times that the doctors are patients. So, like, I didn't think about, like, Christina or Burke or even, like, Addison
Yeah.
as that. Like, I just didn't, like, think about it because I was like, yeah, they're doctors, whatever. And so, like, I don't know, but, like, a lot of their story, like, Christina's storyline was great.
So our number 1, Denny Duquette.
Oh, yeah. Because, like, how can you not?
213, 219 through 227. The greatest patient that's ever been on Grey's Anatomy. And I will fight you if you tell me that it's different.
It's a good thing I had Denny, too.
That's it.
But-
All right, so we have one last question, and it was texted into us, and the question is, if you could rewrite season 2, what is one thing you would change?
It's so hard because, like, we talked about this all season. We never really had to make one change or anything, but...
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I don't want to change anything, because if you change one tiny thing, what are the implications for later in the season, you know?
I got my one change. Introduce Camille earlier in the season and have her, like...
Yeah.
And so it's not just kind of, like obvious in the last couple episodes that they just kind of threw her in to make the prom. Because I feel like if they had just introduced her and, like, had, like, a short scene in, like, you know, like, 220, 221 or something of, like, Addison being, like, my patient, Camille, it wouldn't be, like, as just, like
Plot devicey.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? They did the same thing with Doc, is that they had the interns get Doc in 211, but the whole point of Doc was really to get to Finn. But we didn't know that for a super long time.
Yeah.
They got Doc in 211. We didn't even meet Finn until somewhere in the 220s. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what I would want to do with Camille. Like, mention her in the Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah, like, just, like, something. And it doesn't, like, I'm not talking, like, anything big, but, like, you know, definitely when they, like, threw her in, we definitely, like, had those scenes where it was, like, we're going to tell you all this background information about her. And it was, like, great.
Yeah.
And then, like, they kind of threw in the prom in 227, and you're like, okay, so that's exactly why they had her for so long. Like, I don't know.
Okay. That's valid. All right, I agree with that. So that's it. So now we're going to go over some bonus features that we got on the DVD. So in case you don't have the DVD now, you aren't missing anything.
Can you find these on YouTube or no?
I'm not sure, because it's old. You know? Like, I feel like from, like, the season 11 DVD, you would probably be able to find it. But these ones, I'm not sure. So one of them was called The Doctors Are In, and it was Kate Walsh, Justin Chambers, James Pickens Jr., and T.R. Knight answering questions from fans.
Okay, so that's Addison, Alex,
the Chief, and George. So I wrote down all the questions. I'm not going to read all of them, honestly. I'm just going to read some of the ones I found most interesting. So Kate Walsh first. What has been your favorite scene this season and why? And she said tearing into Alex Karev. And she also liked whenever they went to Seattle to shoot and all the trailer scenes with Dempsey. Interesting. Number 2, if your character's relationship with McDreamy doesn't work out, who would you like to see Addison hook up with? She took a pause, and she goes, I don't know, maybe Alex Karev?
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So they're seeing something with that in the future, too.
Number 3, how did you feel to come into the show and have everyone hate you because you were breaking up Derek and Meredith? And she said, I think the writers were a little frightened, and that they wanted to write Addison more complex and show the softer underbelly, not that she was just the wicked witch of the East. Good job. What happened to the salmon-colored scrubs? She actually loved them. Kate Walsh. She's like, I want to bring them back. And last one, why did you turn out to be a fan favorite? And she says she thinks it's because people respond to the high sass level.
I can see that.
So Justin Chambers, they asked him some questions, but the only one I found interesting was, what is the one thing that you like about your character and one thing that you hate about him? And he said that he liked that he's honest, and the thing that he hated about him was that he's honest. I was like, so true, though.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people could relate to that. Mm-hmm. He said, quote, a lot of strange dichotomies. So, and James Pickens Jr. is a national treasure. And his first question is, I heard you enjoy roping and the rodeo circuit. What is it about that you like so much? And he said, I've always loved horses.
What the hell is the horse theme in this season?
Everyone on this season has like a horse-like hard on.
I don't understand.
I don't get it. Anyway, as soon as I heard that, I was like, I am mentioning this. And then this other one for James Pickens Jr. What was the most memorable scene you've performed in Grey's Anatomy? Weirdly, he said a scene between Burke and the chief where he was talking to him in the hospital bed. Like, the chief was in the hospital. I think it was like 201. And he was like, you and I were the same. Really? That scene? It's kind of shocking to me. Mm-hmm. And here we go. TR, by far the most interesting. Get ready. So TR Knight was asked, did you know that you were going to hook up with Meredith from the beginning? And he said, I found out about it shortly before filming, and we didn't find out about the scene until the table read. So they were reading it cold at the table read, which is horrifying in a way. And this is the holy grail. How do you feel about the fans calling out for George and Izzy pairing? And he goes, I think it could happen. Not anytime really soon because Denny. They're obviously great friends, but she's insanely beautiful and smart and funny. It might be an interesting dynamic to happen eventually. Nice. Then there was this little thing, then the next bonus feature was called The Softer Side of Dr. Bailey. It was basically just Shonda Wilson walking around and talking to the camera. Showed some behind the scenes of the bomb episode, which I thought was kind of cool. I learned that she was actually pregnant when Bailey was pregnant in the show, and so I wonder if that pregnancy was planned or if it just happened because Shonda Wilson got pregnant. And Kate Walsh said that the Jeremiah storyline was the first time she got to work with Shonda Wilson, and it was incredible. Mm-hmm. Then there was creating Pink Mist, which we already went over. If you want to hear about that, you should go to our Season 2, Episode 17 podcast.
And 6. We talked some about that in 6
too. The whole bomb, yeah. Then there was a set of Seattle Grace Hospital with James Pickens Jr. Some highlights. They have 2 ORs on set. They use a mannequin for the close-up shots in surgery. The OR board, the patients on the OR board are members of the Grey's Anatomy crew. The MRI machine that you see in the show is actually real.
That's cool.
They weirdly referenced Joe's Bar as Joe's Place.
Interesting.
I feel like the fans changed that. They were like, no, it's called Joe's Bar. But on set, they call it Joe's Place.
Interesting.
Weird. And it's a bar actually modeled after a real bar in California. I want to go there. Mm-hmm. On the fridge in the break room, they post the ratings of the show for each week, which was fascinating. The monster in charge of Callie's hair is named Sean Flanagan, aka the hair person. So now we know who's responsible for Izzy's amazing hair, but also Callie's flaming dumpster fire of a hairdo. He's in charge of both of them.
I'm confused.
So yeah. In 215, the main reception area doubled as a patient's room so the crew could shoot a long crane shot looking down on the patient, Grace Bickham, as she died. So yeah. And lastly, the unaired scenes. There were a lot. So the first one was early in season 2. I can't they didn't actually tell you what episode it was cut from, but you can kind of like put the pieces together. So it was the chief in his office with a psychiatrist that he was just like friends with, I guess, and he was having lunch and talking about Ellis. And we find out that Ellis was the only female and he was the only person of color when they were residents. And this psychiatrist was basically playing a similar role to Ollie, like calling him out. And he tells her that they had a significant affair. Mm-hmm. And now she being Ellis, is reliving the affair. And that Meredith is working at the hospital and the chief doesn't want to hurt her. And the psychiatrist goes, but you don't want to see Ellis get hurt either. And the psychiatrist is like, clarify the timeline, remind her that their relationship is over, and that it's important to keep it a secret. It was a weird scene.
Which is weird, because, like, does it even work with someone with Alzheimer's, or...? So the second scene is a scene between Addison and the chief, and they're outside on the streets of Seattle. It's very similar to the scene that we had where Addison says, he wants me to move here, Richard, just pick up everything and move. And it's a pretty short scene. It basically just goes, you know... The chief kind of just goes, you're scared. And then she goes, I'm not scared. I'm just scared.
Yeah. And that's pretty much the whole scene.
I was going to say, a lot of the, delete or, unaired scenes, weren't super long.
Or they weren't, a new concept. Mm-hmm. So this one is, Izzy comes out of a patient's room. Alex comes around the corner, and he asks her if she wants to get some lunch. And Izzy goes, Alex, just so we're clear, I have a dog. And he goes, good. How's that going? And then she goes, good. You want a dog? Meaning she wants to get rid of it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So the fourth one is Addison searching kind of Derek's shit trailer for a shoe and asks Derek to blow up the trailer.
Yeah, literally.
What the heck? And
they're just talking about a patient.
Yeah, just talking about work. And then Doc ends up having her shoe that she's been looking for. And she calls him a bad dog. Again, a super small scene, but can we also just appreciate her asking Derek to blow up the trailer?
Can you blow up the shit trailer, Derek?
Can you know that patient in the ER that has the bomb in him? Bring him to this trailer and let him explode.
So Addison and Derek in the trailer brushing their teeth is the next one. And it's just this kind of weird marriage part. Moment where Addison's like, remember that place we went to? And he's just like, with the boat? No, the other place. With the bed. No one ate my shoes there. And then he's like, we should go back there. And then they just kiss, and that's kind of the whole thing.
Interesting. So it's just more of their relationship scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then we get this scene between Alex and Izzy. They're trying to treat the chief in the OR. This is during the bomb episode. Mm-hmm. Izzy is trying to stick the chief, and he's like... Basically, she's missing. And he's like, ow, 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 Stevens, for the love of God. And George comes around and, freaks out.
And he literally says the line, you're the last of the grown-ups.
Which is weird, but whatever.
But I love this because Izzy goes, okay, George, you're freaking out. And he goes, I am? And then she goes, yes, and if you don't stop, I'm gonna start laughing again.
And then the chief, gets up and, has to sit back down, and then Adele comes in and says, oh, thank God, a grown-up. You foolish little child of a man.
Yeah. And then this really brief scene with, in 218, it's just Mark, Alex, and Christina in the CT viewing room, and literally nothing of importance happens.
Yeah. And then you get this kind of, weird scene between Mark and Derek, and Mark just goes... I didn't know she was your girlfriend when I was flirting with Meredith. Did you also not know that Addison was my wife? I'm sorry, man. That's all I came here to say. Leave, Mark. Like, weird.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been weird if it had aired. Like,
a lot of things just didn't need to air. Yeah. George, Izzy, Addison, and Orgasm Woman's father are talking about her episodes. And George doesn't want to say the C word, and Izzy has to finish his sentence, which is, like, adorbs, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you just have, like, another pretty quick scene of Alex and Izzy waking up in bed together, both with morning breath, which, like, okay.
And you're like, yeah, that could have been cut, and it was.
That's great.
It's that guy Sean and his gay father's talking to Derek and Meredith, and it's, like, a pretty long scene. But what was nice about this scene was that we got more of, like, how Sean actually tied into the theme. Remember how that was a problem?
Yeah.
We had more of, like, them, like, treating this patient, where it's, like, in the episode, he kind of just disappeared halfway through.
Yeah.
And so that shouldn't have been cut, maybe. I liked it.
Interesting. Then you have this scene between, it's in 222, between Amelia, who's the daughter of Beatrice, and Alex just talking about her mom.
But Alex is not talking because he doesn't want to say anything, so he's just like, you should go talk to your mom.
Yeah.
Meredith and Izzy in the tunnels knitting, and Izzy's just kind of like watching Meredith looking horrified by her like monstrosity. And Izzy goes, you can have mine. And Meredith, I don't want yours. I can make a sweater. There's no shame in not being able to. And Meredith goes, there is shame. And then Alex walks up and Izzy's like, fine, you can have the tunnels. I don't even like the tunnels. And Alex just sits down and he goes, you need anything? And Meredith, no, I'm good. You? And then he's like, no, just do your thing. And they just kind of sit there together, which would have been a really nice Meredith and Alex scene.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that helps explain why Derek... Remember the Derek and Addison scene in the shower at the end? When they, like, weren't able to have, like, good sex in that one? It was 223. From 223. So, Meredith and Derek are in the elevator, and she goes, McVet asked me out today. And he goes, what? Who? And she goes, Finn. Oh, okay. So, you're gonna go out with Doc's vet. I just thought I could tell you things because we're friends. And he goes, oh, great, thanks. And she goes, so, you answered the phone during sex you answered the phone. And he goes, what's your point? Maybe you should do the thing. You know, the thing in the shower with the bending? And he just kind of looks at her and he's just like, you know, Meredith, we can be friends. We just can't be girlfriends. And she goes, guys don't give sex advice? Rarely. And good luck with the vet. And she goes, okay, thanks. Good luck with the sex with your wife. Like that. Yeah, well, it's just interesting because then he does do the shower thing. He takes her advice. Interesting. At the end of the episode, he takes Meredith's advice.
Interesting.
Which, like, spins it completely. Because at the end of that episode, when you're watching it without this scene in it, you think, whoa, Derek's actually really trying to have hot sex with Addison.
Make it work.
But then when you realize it's because Meredith told him to, he's still thinking about Meredith the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So, interesting.
Interesting. And then we get a kind of more mommy tracking scene with the Chief and Bailey rushing to the ER.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another scene, Melanie, so this is 224. All the attendings talking about what they need to do in the surgery while she's being wheeled down the hallway. And they roll past Meredith and Marshall, who still hasn't gotten a CT.
Then we get this scene, basically, where Bailey's confronting Izzy about how she just dished Callie's surgery in that one episode.
Yeah, I like how they actually had a scene, like, confronting it.
And, like, making it, like, Bailey being like, why did you just dish her surgery? And Izzy's like, I was with Denny. And Bailey goes, this man is more than just your patient. You know it, and I know it. I'm not sorry that I missed that surgery. Me choosing to stay with him does not mean I'm a bad person. No, it may mean you're in the wrong business. Which is interesting.
It's interesting that they cut that because then I feel like when she goes, and I quit, and then Bailey goes, Izzy, like that would hold more weight with that scene in it.
But I also feel like it's almost better with, because I feel like with this scene, Bailey would be more in the know, and so you're kind of like,
yeah,
okay, she actually like didn't control her Izzy, because like obviously like with this scene she's like, I know, kind of.
Yeah. Where
she doesn't really, I don't know. It's interesting.
Just weird. Then there's Meredith and Doc with Finn talking about the nature of Meredith and Derek's relationship. And Finn goes, if you decide not to put Doc to sleep when he's this sick, you should really ask yourselves why. What exactly are you fighting for? And he's basically implying, like, this dog is more than just a dog to you and Derek.
Mm-hmm. And then we get a scene which I'm kind of glad they cut, because it's basically like this scene about how Camille is talking to Christina, of all people, about this. And she's sad because she's, you know, like, quote, like, the girl with cancer kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she's really depressed because everyone's treating her differently because of this. And how Brian, like, her boyfriend, Brian won't even talk to her anymore because he's scared.
And she's like, everyone's scared of girl with cancer. And I was like, ugh.
Which I feel like a scene like that would have made more sense if they, like, had her in, since, like, a while episodes you're actually kind of, like, attached to her.
Well, they also had a whole side story in this finale of Brian not wanting to come to the prom.
Oh.
And they completely cut it. Like, Brian
I'm glad.
seems like he wants to be... Yeah, because that holds more weight, because then when she goes, I've been loved, it actually feels like Brian loves her. It's not like he's just showing up because she's girl with cancer.
Well, then, like, at the end of the day, Camille was solely a plot device. So, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like that would just be like, why are you taking away from all the other stuff?
Mm-hmm. And then there's this one last scene of George putting up decorations for the prom, and Natalie and Claire walk up with Brian, and George has this heart-to-heart with Brian, and he goes, why don't you want to go? And he goes, she didn't even tell me she was sick, and now... And George is like, your girlfriend is dying. This prom thing matters to girls. It matters a lot. She's not going to have a chance to dance at her wedding or to graduate high school, etc., etc. You know, and it was something like that. And, yeah, it's just kind of weird how they scrapped that whole storyline.
But again, like, I'm kind of glad.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
And last but not least, there was the weirdest thing ever. It was like this Grey's Anatomy on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and Jimmy Kimmel looked like a baby. And so it was Katherine Heigl first, and it would have premiered right after the finale.
Interesting.
Maybe not like the same night, but like the same week. And Katherine said they finished the first season before they even knew if they had an air date, which is interesting. She had a crush on Patrick Dempsey as a kid when she watched Sweet Home Alabama. 5 to 7 times Alex and Izzy originally were supposed to be in the linen closet, but they had to edit a lot of it out.
That's hilarious.
And she talked about her new movie, Knocked Up, with Seth Rogen, which is super old now. And then they had this weird-ass skit where, like, they faked Jimmy Kimmel getting a snake bite. Like, legit, they faked it. And, like, the whole audience was like, oh my god, was, like, in on it. James Pickens Jr. talked about the rodeo again. Because, like, they brought Jimmy to Seattle Grace, and then they had the doctors come. It was so weird. And then Shonda Wilson, very, very different from Bailey. And I learned that she used to work at an investment banking firm in New York. Basically, just stopped showing up after the pilot was shot. And...
Pulling an Izzy.
Yeah, pulling an Izzy. In your face, Callie. And she was on The Cosby Show in college.
Interesting.
And this would have been way before all the Cosby stuff. So, just some fun facts about that. So, Becca, do you have anything at all that you want to say about Season 2 of Grey's Anatomy?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm trying to think of things that we haven't already talked about, but considering this podcast is almost 3 hours long, I feel like we've talked about a lot of stuff.
I can't believe we did it. I think we talked about everything for Season 2 of Grey's Anatomy. Next week, we're going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 1, Time Has Come Today. It was written by Shonda Rhimes, directed by Daniel Minahan.
Is he new?
No. He's been around for a while.
The name just doesn't sound as familiar, but...
Yeah. So if you want to get in touch with us, or, feel free to keep sending in questions. Just because we're not doing an overview doesn't mean that we don't want questions, and doesn't mean we won't answer them on the air. So if you want to get in touch with us, you can on Twitter Mine is at hazard_Emily. Becca's is at Anderson_Becca. The account for the podcast is at greysanatomyuncut. We have a website, which is greysanatomyuncut.home.blog, which is where you can find every single episode of our podcast, as well as iTunes. Every episode is on iTunes. And if you have a longer question or comment, you can send it into our Gmail, which is greysanatomyuncut@gmail.com. And that is all I have for you today, folks.
Buckle up, guys. We're starting season 3.
It's going to be epic.
And let me tell you, it gets a little dark.
Oh, yeah.
But don't worry. We'll keep it light and fun.
This is creepy. All right.
Bye now.
Have a good one.